The cinema. I don't think anyone will be going to the movies tonight. Waterworld is not playing, by the way. This is just amazing stuff. This is where people park their cars and go into businesses, and 5 or 6 feet of water, from what we can tell, is just roaring through here. Smell of gasoline is very rampant. It's from the cars that are parked around in the area. Homes and businesses all around the corner here, and pretty soon you're going to see this is just one of the local businesses around here that's apparently all, and so far it looks like no one got stuck, which we're pretty amazed because it came in pretty fast. According to the locals, about 2 or 3 this morning just came whipping through here. Now, coming up, the video you're going to see next, I think, is it's a local. Here's one of the Jeeps that we drove by, or the trucks, I think. There is one local business down here. It's a dental and doctor's office. This is a Jeep that at least it looks like somebody got out of. The door is still open. All the belongings still inside. The kids' toys. I mean, I think they were taken off guard here. And our thanks again to Mike Opel, who was the boat owner who took us around the area, because that's the only way you can get around this part of Tualatin right now. And they're keeping traffic out of here. It's hard because people are so excited about the water. They're coming through here, and police are really being a little cranky with them, saying you got to get out of here. You can't just stand here and watch, because the water is moving pretty swift.
Well, so many of these areas, Paula, as you know, are familiar to so many people. They just have to see what's going on. I can't believe your pictures here. This is just unbelievable.
Phil Beard and I also, Paul, climbed up on the top of Rada Paint. We want to thank them. We climbed up 2 ladders to get a better view. You won't see those in these shots, but anything to get a better idea of what's going on here. As I was saying, I think we're going to come up here pretty soon to a dental and medical office where some of the doctors and dentists were there when we came. They had some rescue guys that were helping out Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue, and they actually came up here from Douglas County. I guess they don't have enough disasters down their way, and they came up here to help out. They were checking around the businesses to make sure that nobody was still there. So many parked cars, Paul. I couldn't believe it. People definitely caught off guard. Here you see the rescue guys going in. This place also had a water pump problem in their basement, and these guys were trying to get all their dental and medical records out as much as possible. And that's one of the dentists getting out of the building there.
Well, you mentioned the crews coming up from Douglas County. We were hearing yesterday from equipment companies in Hillsborough who were racing downtown to help the businesses in downtown Portland because they knew the help. It's just amazing. There are hundreds of these stories we'll never know about and won't be able to tell about people that hear what's going on, and they just come running to do what they can.
That's right. And as I said, even though police are trying to keep people out, people are concerned. They do want to help. The Pizza Hut people especially were putting some more sandbags in a little bit ago, and people were anxious to help, and they were right in there helping. But again, it's hard to turn away from this stuff because it is pretty exciting to watch.
And you talk about the police getting upset there with people, Paula. I think that's happening all over the place, and nerves are a little frayed at this point. It's been a long couple of days for people, so you can certainly understand that to a certain extent.
That's right.
Okay,
what a workout. Look at the bucket brigade they've got going with the sandbags there, and some of those guys are running, and I don't know how much those bags weigh, and then schlepping them back and running back to get more. I mean, that's a lot more work than you and I've done over the last 24 hours, or maybe
24
the last
years.
2 weeks.
I was going to say, hey, Paula Gunnis, Tualatin, thank you very, very much for that update, and I certainly feel for those people out there. For those of you perhaps just joining us, I want to take you a little bit of a tour, so to speak, of some of our major cities and that are affected. Of course, a lot of cities affected. We'll just name a few of them in our city check now. The cities of Vernonia and Clatskanie are completely isolated by floodwaters. Telephone communications are out in both cities. However, the 911 system is working in Clatskanie. In Vancouver, evacuations are still in effect for the Fruit Valley and Vancouver Lake Lowlands area. Also, Highway 14 remains closed from Wintler Park to I-5. And in the town of Almsville near Salem, city officials say the city's water system is fine. There is no need for residents to boil their tap water. Also in Almsville, city crews are beginning to clean streets affected by that dirty storm water. I'm going to step out of here for just a little bit. Jeff Gianola is going to come on back in and join Paul Lindman. In the meantime, Matt Zaffino's here.
Pleasure working with you once again, and we'll see you in an hour or two, I bet. All right, Steve Dunn out, Gianola in, Zaffino in, Bosley out. It's hard to keep up with the game if you don't have a scorecard.
It is, but folks need rest, and so we just keep it coming.
You bet.
We got a strong bench here. Hey, we got a nice day going on out there. I don't need to tell you about that. I was out a little bit earlier. I had a chance to get out and speak to some folks down along Multnomah Channel along Sylvie Island, and they're doing pretty well out there. I mean, they flooded up, but quite a bit of the folks on the houseboats and all their slips, but the water didn't bring the slips, you know, the ties over the top. So most of the folks that I talked to said, yeah, it was close, but we're doing all right. And I went down to the Rocky Point Marina, too, and it was kind of the same deal there. But it's just amazing to get out and see what's going on out there. I mean,
Help now is on the way for flood victims. President Clinton has declared 17 counties in Oregon and 13 in Washington disaster areas. That releases grant and loan money to help pay for flood expenses such as home repairs and uninsured losses. The director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, James Witt, will tour this region tomorrow, and this is some of what he will see. The town of Vernonia in northwest Oregon flooded by Gales Creek and Rock Creek. It's typical of many small towns cut off not only by water but also by landslides. This one has swept away a portion of Highway 202, the Scappoose-Vernonia Road, which did connect those communities to the coast. Even more houses are flooded in the town of Clatskanie, which is surrounded by the Columbia and Clatskanie rivers. Many residents evacuated their now waterlogged homes. Here's proof this will be an expensive flood. Damage to private industries such as this lumber mill will run into the tens of thousands of dollars. Look at all that finished lumber just floating in the floodwaters. Life on the Washington side of the Columbia is no better. Here the community of Kalama is absolutely inundated. Mudslides to the south at Woodland restrict traffic on Interstate 5. There are pictures of Kalama right there. And Vancouver's small airport is underwater. Operators of Pearson Air Park wisely flew their planes out yesterday before the Columbia River covered the runway.
Residents in Tualatin have been hit with a 1-2 punch. Floodwater has caused massive problems for businesses and farms in that community. Alexa Gromko joins us now live with the latest from Tualatin. Alexa?
Hi, Shirley. This is pretty crazy over here in Tualatin. I am standing at the intersection of Nyberg and Martinazzi. Behind me, these are streets that are now transformed into rivers thanks to the Tualatin River. The Tualatin River, just to give you a ballpark here, is a quarter of a mile down that way. And if you look this direction, this is unbelievable. The river has flooded this direction, and it's just going about another quarter of a mile that way. Some of the landmarks over here, Tualatin Commons is straight down Nyberg Road in that direction. You can see the Taco Bell in the distance, maybe. Anyway, flood extravaganza at this point. Let's take a look at some video we shot earlier. The National Guard was called in to help with sandbagging, to provide drinking water, and to provide helicopters, which you may have heard just a few moments ago in the air, to assess the damage. There's an operations center in the city of Tualatin on Herman Road. That's where sandbags are, and if you need them out there, you can go get them on, again, Herman Road in Tualatin. They're urging people to stay out of the streets because the flood flow contains raw sewage. Students at Jesuit High School didn't have class today. They came down to help. Around the corner, there's the Riverview West Apartments. They were evacuated because of flooding yesterday. Some came back today to survey the damage. They are right next to the Tualatin River. Cars are underwater. The first floor units are just a mess. Many folks are at the Red Cross shelter, which was set up at the Living Savior Lutheran Church at Southwest Sagert Street. That's where cots and food is available. And that's good because the folks at the apartment complex lost everything. We spoke to a woman earlier. Here's what she had to say.
And we tried to get as much as we could out last night, but there's just no way. We've lost everything. We've just lost everything. Our clothes, our dishes, our pans, microwave, all the appliances, everything. And he just took the kayak and went through the apartment in the kayak, and he said the furniture's floating and the fridge is floating upside down with the doors up. And
did you have renter's insurance?
No. I bet you not.
Back here now live. Look at this water. By the way, folks, again, I've got to remind you, this is sewage water. The flood water from the Tualatin River is contaminated with raw sewage. They are urging people to stay away from the downtown area here in Tualatin. Very emergency situation going on. Do not come down here if at all possible. And the water continues to rise. I've got some figures for you. At about 11:45 this morning, the Tualatin River was at 125 feet, just above that. It's expected to crest at 126 feet. That could happen after 6 o'clock tonight. We've got some cars driving by right now. They're bringing in sandbags. They're pretty crazy to be driving down here. We have not seen much activity over here in the way of cars, but you do see some now. And that's because, again, the water continues to rise out here. And not a lot of people at businesses because, again, they were all evacuated from the downtown area at about 11 this morning. So that's the situation out here. We continue to monitor it. And, again, traffic is a mess. If you're trying to head to Tualatin, the exits are closed. Some of you may have already figured that out off I-5. You're urged to take alternate routes into Tualatin if you've got to come in here at all.
Alexa, tell us again where people should go to the Red Cross shelter in Tualatin.
Yes. Yeah, let me just get my notes available. It's at the Living Savior Lutheran Church, and that's at Southwest Sager Road. They have cots and food available. There are quite a few people who were flooded out of their homes along the Tualatin River, and that's where most of them are at this point. They come back during the day to see what they can salvage from their home, and then they go back to the center. Again, Living Savior Lutheran Church at Southwest Sager Street, I guess, street or road.
Okay, thank you very much. Alexa Gromko reporting from Tualatin, and that commons area that she was reporting on that is now flooded. That's relatively new, as you and I were talking about.
Oh, it's brand new. All of that area.
New businesses.
Yeah, a lot of commercial activity right around that lake that they put in there. If you want to go down Washington Street in Oregon City, you need a boat right now. Our crew's got aboard with a business owner checking on his shop. His grocery store won't be open, or this grocery store, I should say, won't be open for business anytime soon. All along Washington Street, the story is the same. Boats are the only way in. This West Lynn home had a lovely deck view of the Willamette River. Now the river owns part of the deck, and the muddy waters of the Willamette are inside the home. Other West Lynn homes along the river tell the same tale. Waterlogged, they just break.
This is incredible. These houses here are at least 500 yards from the river most of the time.
At West Lynn, the Willamette is 5 feet above flood stage. Water is lapping at the foundations and in many cases flooding into the dozens of expensive homes along the river. The river should start falling now, giving these ducks a little more room to wander. Lots of people are wanting to get a look at the floating city, taking pictures and videotaping for history's sake. Ken Boddy joins us live from Oregon City. And Ken, you have lots of company out there, I'd imagine.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. You think Disneyland was somewhere close to here with the amount of people that are here. We'll show you that in just a minute. But as you can see, Washington Street is still underwater. You see that gentleman right there waving at you, letting you know that these businesses will not be open anytime soon. Take a look at Tony's Fish Market. It's been open since 1936, but it's not open today. Be a great home for fish right now. They could swim right in and right out, as a matter of fact. You mentioned the fact that there are a lot of people who have been spectators on the aftermath of this whole flooding. Let's walk over here and take a look at all of these people who are here just watching us and watching the water. You've got people with cameras. That's been the case all over Oregon City today. Anywhere you go, there's a traffic jam, and it's not because there are that many obstructions. It's because people want to be a witness to history. So this is what's happening. It's a wonderful day out here in terms of the sun and the temperature, but obviously there's still a lot of cleanup to do, and that's going to be happening over the next few days.
Ken, is that all the Willamette River? Is the Clackamas River influencing any of that? What's causing all the high water in Oregon City?
Well, actually, it's the Willamette, the Clackamas, and the Molalla River, which isn't too far from here. In fact, there's a town called Barlow, which is about 10 miles from here, that was totally evacuated, and that's on the Molalla River. So there are a number of rivers that are close to here, and all of them have an influence on the flooding that occurred.
All right, thank you. Ken Boddy reporting from Oregon City.
Thousands of people have been leaving their homes in the Kaiser area. They started 2 days ago, and I understand they still are headed for higher ground. This is one of the worst hit places in the valley, like you saw Oregon City. Eric Mason joins us now from Kaiser with the latest. Have they have everybody out, or are they still evacuating people, Eric?
Well, Shirley, everybody is out, and everybody thought the big problem was going to be the Willamette River. No one knew about this little-known river as the Little Pudding River. This behind me is the Hidden Creek subdivision. It's no longer very hidden. As you can see behind me, the water has come through. It started coming through at a trickle this morning, then a torrent. No one exactly knew where this water was coming from. All they knew that it was coming from the Little Pudding River. They tried in vain at first to try to save some of these houses and get the water out of some of these houses. It wasn't working. And some of the neighbors in this neighborhood say that they tried to get the developers not to build here. So this tragedy is something of a controversy.
Exactly what the situation is, I do not know, or has not been confirmed to me exactly what has happened. All I know is the water is continuing to increase at this time.
Homeowners watched in disbelief as the water rolled in. All anyone knew was that the Little Pudding River turned very big. This man claims he told developers not to build here because it was a wetland.
We presented to them that there was possibly a wetlands area that they need to have a study done. They presented a study showing that it wasn't. I presented a study, a different study that was taken earlier in the year that showed that it was a possible wetlands area, and the developer didn't use that.
Developers say it's just not true.
There's no controversy from the people that live down here. I think it's the people across the creek, and there's been an ongoing battle. There's some fine people that live over there, but there's 3 or 4 of them that seemingly just want to take what is a natural catastrophe here and blow it out of proportion.
In any case, homeowners are in shock and disbelief. They thought the threat was the mighty Willamette, and it turned out to be a little-known river known as the Little Pudding.
When you moved here, did anyone tell you that this might not be a safe place to live in the case of a flood?
No.
Nothing at all, no warning at all?
No, I don't have flood insurance either.
So at this point, here in Kaiser, most of what people thought was going to be a problem, the Willamette River, most of those homes were safe. The several thousand or so people that went to higher ground, their homes are safe. At the other side of River Road, which is over here on Hidden Creek, the water came through and caused quite a problem. And so what we have is the unexpected. We thought the Willamette was going to be the problem. It turned out to be the Little Pudding River. One side note, as we have all this water coming in, there's very little drinking water, and so they're urging everyone at this point to be very conservation-minded when it comes to drinking water, and they've got about 2 days left worth of drinking water. They need 4 days worth of drinking water before their water supply system can go back online. They can begin treating water from the Sandy Am River. Shirley?
Eric, a friend of mine was driving through that area where you are now early this morning, and he said the water was actually still rising. Is that possible?
Well, I think there's 2 different streams here. The Willamette didn't get across the dike and go into that subdivision here in Kaiser. Although there are some other streams, some side streams that all of a sudden took off for no unexplained reason. I think what was happening was some of these smaller streams didn't have anywhere to go, and they started backing up and going to places they've never gone before. So the Willamette isn't increasing, but some of these other smaller streams going into the subdivision like Hidden Creeks are.
Okay, thank you very much. Eric Mason reporting from the Kaiser area, and we just got word from the city of Milwaukee. They're encouraging their customers to conserve water to limit potential sewage problems. The county sewage treatment plant at Kellogg Park along the banks of the Willamette has been evacuated now and is now routing sewage directly into the river, and we're getting word all over the place to conserve.
Yeah, some people at Oregon State University sent us a fax saying that if you have to drink something from your tap, now to boil it for at least a minute in some communities. If you have any fears that your water looks turbid or is a little funny, boil it first, or drink bottled water is their advice. And we'll have more on that in our 5 o'clock report. I've prepared a health piece on some of the hazards posed by this flood water. Jim Little will join us with the latest forecast when our coverage of the flood of '96 continues in just a moment.
It's pretty bad.
Area where they've had some evacuations and severe flooding.
The river is a lot higher now than it was before.
And this is one of Salem's main thoroughfares.
So we'll be watching this situation.
I think we'll see some drier weather and maybe even a little sunshine.
For the most up-to-date information on the flood of '96, stay tuned to Newscenter 6.
6-day forecast.
Oh, yeah, I can tell you the forecast has become very easy now because high pressure is building over the Pacific Northwest, and we're going to see sunshine coming up for the next several days. Let's check it out. Here's the satellite picture. You can see the weather system that moved on through is now kind of falling apart. What's left of it is down in California, getting some rain down there. A weather system off the coast is actually going to kind of fall apart. It's building a ridge of high pressure out ahead of it, so that's really not a threat. We may get a few high clouds from time to time out of that. Let's check out what's going on here. The latest we have on the Willamette River and it is hovering right around its crest right now. Currently at Portland, the latest report we have is 28.4 feet and holding steady. Below the falls at Oregon City, it's 45.0 feet and holding steady. And the latest update on Oregon City above the falls, 19.4 feet. It may go up about another 0.3 of a foot and reach that crest about 7 o'clock tonight. The Willamette River, or the Columbia River, rather, is also a problem. And the forecast we have for the Columbia River looks like this. Currently, it's at 26.9 feet and should fluctuate about that level here probably through tomorrow morning, and then we'll begin to see some changes coming up. Our forecast for the Portland metropolitan area, we'll give you a quick look at the 6-day forecast here, kind of a preview look. We're looking at that sunshine continuing through the next 6 days. Fairly warm. We'll warm up into the upper 50s. The freezing level will go up, but I don't think we're going to have the serious problem with snow melt now. Some of the snow will melt, but basically dry weather, sunshine, and warm temperatures. A little bit of an east wind coming up here off and on for the next 6 days. We'll talk about that in more detail coming up a little later.
Jim, you're saying that the danger is not passed. The river's not receding in the Oregon City area, that it's going to continue to go up a little bit?
The latest information we have is that it may go up another 0.3 of a foot above the falls. Now, Shirley was talking and Eric were talking about the way it fluctuates and how dynamic it is. You know, you could get a culvert that gets clogged up above you. Suddenly that clog goes away and the water surges and it looks like it's coming up. And indeed it is coming up. But those are the sort of things that are just literally unforecastable. So when we say it's holding steady, there could be a fluctuation, especially on the smaller streams that can come up real fast and go down real fast with those kind of situations. So you need to be really alert when you're near the water.
And of course, Oregon City, by its very nature where it is, it's got 3 rivers converging there. So that's why they're having so many problems as well.
We're going to go back down to the seawall in just a little while and see what's happening there. A near miss in downtown Portland today.
This is News Center 6.
Well, downtown Portland is safe from flooding, but the city is facing another water emergency, its supply of drinking water. With Bull Run shut down, the city is now relying on pumps for clean water, and it is not meeting the demand. To force conservation, the city this afternoon banned outdoor use of water until next Thursday. That's next Thursday. City Commissioner Mike Lindbergh says unless consumption is cut by 30%, Portlanders will be boiling their water by Sunday. There is water everywhere, obviously, but not a drop of this is fit to drink. It is polluted by raw sewage. Oregon City's treatment plant, as you can see here, surrounded by the Willamette River water, is polluted. Metro Executive Mike Burton says he's more concerned about sewage getting into the plant than out of it. Covered wagons at the Oregon Trail exhibit are having a pioneer experience. Crossings of frontier rivers were never quite like this. Willamette Falls, as you can see, is no longer falling, but instead resembles a giant jacuzzi churning with the muddy river, which all but covers the landmark. The flood is no respecter of wealth either. The contents of these expensive Lake Oswego homes will cost thousands to replace and repair, perhaps more. This person's castle enjoyed a magnificent view of the Willamette River. Now that view is too close for comfort.
Hepatitis A and salmonella, just a couple of the microbes that are in all of that floodwater. Don't touch it. We'll have more on that a little bit later. One of the most amazing sights is along the Willamette River downtown. The steel bridge is right on top of the water, the lower deck of it is, and it's catching much of the debris that's floating along the river. Lisa Balick is near the bridge, and Lisa, is that debris continuing to pile up there?
Mark, it sure is. Take a look over my shoulder here right now. A lot of the tugboats in the area have been pressed into service. What they're trying to do is round up some of the bigger objects, most of the logs and pieces of debris, and they're pushing that debris into piles alongside the bridge. This tugboat right now is pushing a big log, it looks like, and it's going to go up against the steel bridge, which, by the way, is one reason the steel bridge is closed, because there's so much debris pressing against the footings of the bridge that they've decided to close it to all pedestrians, as well as the cars, buses, anybody trying to get over there. They're making sure they've got police on both ends of it. And they're saying it's going to stay closed for a while because of all the stuff that's on the bottom along the bridge here. Take a look at some of the debris that's piled up there. I mean, besides wood and plastic containers, what you don't see is the massive wall of debris that's below the water. You know, in fact, when you take a look at this, you think, gee, what's the problem? It's only a few pieces of things. But actually, there's a whole wall of stuff that's underneath there. There's been all kinds of things that people have seen come floating down the river here today. I think my personal favorite was a hot tub. So That's what's going on down here. Again, the tugboats along the river are trying to push all this material up into certain areas. Sandy James was taking a look at some of this earlier on today and has this report.
About 10 a.m., everyone was breathing a sigh of relief. The Willamette was not going to flood downtown Portland. Still, there were new concerns to deal with. The raging river moved so fast and furious, it washed out log rafts moored on Ross Island. Tugboat operators put their lives on the line to fight the swollen waters, struggling to keep the logs in the main channel and away from bridge pilings. Debris of all kinds started getting caught up under the steel bridge. Paddle boats, tires, styrofoam crates, and docks complete with lawn chairs slammed against the base of the bridge over and over again. Operators feared the constant pounding might be taking its toll on the integrity of the bridge. It was shut down. That meant no Macs, no cars, no pedestrians. The Burnside and Hawthorne bridges remained closed most of the day, as did Front Avenue, but the water never got high enough to test the makeshift barricades. Thursday, hundreds of construction workers, many of them volunteers, responded when the cry for help went out. They hammered and nailed a new seawall in place and then waited for the worst. Thankfully, it never came. The barricade never had to be tested. Mayor Katz praised everyone involved.
City workers, federal workers, but more importantly, the carpenters. When I asked for carpenters, because we didn't think we were going to get this wall done on time, they came out with their hammers and nails and got the job done. And restaurants who fed the volunteers and citizens who came out and said, what can we do? This is a wonderful city, and we would not have been in this position if it wasn't for them.
Mayor Katz says she'll put out a call for more volunteers when crews begin the momentous task of dismantling the protective seawall. Along the seawall with photographer Dean Barron, I'm Sandy James, Newscenter 6.
Lots of goodies piling up, that's for sure. One other thing to tell you about, behind me here you see the Burnside Bridge in the up position. Now, the Burnside Bridge, we understand, is going to stay that way for some time, because apparently what happened is they went to put it down today, and a part of the bridge actually sort of free fell down. So the bridge is actually broken at this point. So that's the situation from down here along the seawall. In fact, there's some of the folks that are starting to come down here now because they've removed some of the yellow tape and are letting people come down and take a lot of pictures because they've been piling up to try and get a good look at things. We like to call all these folks the looky-loos, and we'll hear from some of the looky-loos a little bit later on in this newscast. Back to you.
I was doing a little looky-looing earlier today, Lisa. It's so interesting. I mean, we all feel that that's our living room down there, that waterfront park, the living room for the city, and the fact that we were spared is just so wonderful.
Mark, in fact, what somebody said is like staring at an aquarium. You could just stand here and stare all day at all the stuff that just keeps floating on down on its own. In fact, we also saw some birds that were literally getting a bird's eye view as they floated along with the debris.
Well, there's that aspect of it, too, the entertainment part. Thank you, Lisa Balick, reporting from along the seawall in downtown Portland.
Just interesting to watch what's floating down and hitting that bridge. A hot tub, and I was watching you this morning. There was a paddle boat.
All kinds of things. Yeah, we had that. We just set up a camera there this morning and showed some of that stuff hitting the steel bridge, and yeah, it's amazing.
We will be right back. We're going to take you up to Vancouver to check in with Eric Schmidt there.
Plastic garbage cans, they need personal items, of course, anything of that nature. You can't go to help the folks in Vernonia who are basically just cut off by road because of the flooding. Again, milepost 48 on Highway 26. One traffic note for the folks who are driving around the metro area. The city of Milwaukee has issued an advisory. They say traffic is backed up along northbound McLaughlin Boulevard. That's Highway 99 East. One lane has been closed there. People are actually encouraged to find an alternate route for any northbound travel, and they are recommending that you take I-205. They say cars are easily backed up for a mile there with extensive delays for motorists. So if you're trying to get home, be advised of that. Also, lots of folks still concerned about travel north on Interstate 5 between Portland and Seattle. We've got some pictures to show you. Of course, a mudslide north of Woodland, Washington is slowing traffic on Interstate 5. And there's the view from Sky 8 taken earlier today. A big, big backup, but folks still getting through there very slowly. The big closure is a little further north at Chehalis. I-5 northbound is closed at milepost 68 through milepost 76. I-5 southbound at Chehalis is closed from milepost 88 to milepost 76. Chehalis police report several feet of water on the highway. Now, at this point, the only way to get from Portland to Seattle is to fly. So at least 2 airlines that we know of at this point are making an offer. Alaska Airlines has announced it's operating 3 extra flights this evening from Portland to Seattle. Alaska flights 6000, 6001, and 6002 will depart from PDX tonight at 9:50, 10:20, and 11:05 respectively. Also, Horizon Air is offering what it's calling flood fares. Those are reduced ticket prices for people who want to travel in Oregon and Washington. For more information on specific rates, you'll have to call Horizon Air. But that's the update for now. Certainly a big concern for folks who have to go north, and as they say, the only way to get there is to fly. That's one option other than staying home tonight. Jim and Tracy.
Boy, flood fares. Leave it to the airlines marketing folks to come up with something new, huh, Brenda?
That's right.
Thank you. Well, hang in there, everyone. We certainly will, and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back with extended team coverage of the Great Flood of '96 on Northwest News, Channel 8, the new news leader.
Saturday. Earlier here along the Columbia River, literally thousands of people have flocked to the banks to take a look at this incredible sight. As of 3 o'clock, the river was at 27.1 feet. That's what we were told is flood stage. That was where it was going to crest. The flood stage is 16 feet. It was going to crest at 27.1 feet. We now expect the river to stabilize and actually hold at 27 feet until sometime tomorrow morning, when it should drop about a foot. And then by Sunday morning, it should be down as low as 24 feet. Needless to say, this is just one problem here in southwestern Washington. There are huge problems for the residents of this area everywhere. Vancouver police, Clark County sheriffs, and volunteers gathered way before sunup to map out an evacuation plan for the Fruit Valley neighborhood. It's threatened by the Columbia River and Vancouver Lake.
What we have is a lot of water, obviously, coming down the river. We have a high tide situation that will affect the river level coming up. And those two things combined are making this situation here worse than it was.
The waters of the Columbia River covered the walkway promenade at the Columbia Industrial Park, but it could have been much worse.
I think the river is going to crest at 26.7. I know the floors of the condos are over that, and our office buildings are over that, so I think the worst is over.
Pearson Airfield is underwater. The planes were evacuated to higher ground Thursday afternoon. Thursday night, hundreds of volunteers sandbagged Columbia Street at the I-5 bridge. Their efforts kept the river from flowing into downtown Vancouver. Farther north in Woodland, the North Fork of the Lewis River flooded out a mobile home park and several homes. I-5 northbound is still closed because of a mudslide north of Woodland. Traffic is moving, but only in one lane in each direction, and no trucks. And that mudslide has sidetracked Amtrak. No trains north or south until Sunday at the earliest. And the cleanup has already started here in Vancouver. What they're trying to do, the workers in this utility vault are trying to get some water out of the vault so that they can throw the electricity for the downtown river district and get the Inn at the Key back online. People have dinner reservations at the Inn at the Key, and they want window seats so that they can see the magnificent Columbia River. Also on I-5 southbound, there is a traffic jam tonight, and people are actually fighting, Shirley, to get into the slow lane so that they can look over the side of the bridge and see the river.
For once, that's where they want to be, right?
This is probably the only time you'll ever go across that river, and you want to be on that side of it.
You know, Eric, before you go, we know that Marine Drive has now been closed from Troutdale all the way to the Interstate Bridge. Some of the houseboats along 185th on the Oregon side, we've learned these are like $400,000 houseboats, are
Big
close
ones.
to busting free. Yeah. How are the houseboats where you are?
We haven't had any reports of any problems, but there have been literally thousands of flotation devices that broke loose. These are huge black boxes that encase styrofoam, and from yesterday afternoon until early this afternoon, they were literally just floating down the Columbia River. They broke loose, and those are the flotation devices that keep a lot of these very expensive houseboats in the river. We saw a couple of houseboats float by yesterday, but we haven't seen any this afternoon. But we haven't been down on the river all afternoon, so I can't really say that with any certainty.
Okay, well, we're going to cut you loose and let you go gather some more video, and we'll go back to you in a little bit. Thank you. Eric Schmidt reporting from Vancouver.
As we've noted throughout the day, yesterday and today, Portlanders are being asked to conserve drinking water. We're joined now by Portland City Commissioner Mike Lindbergh, who is along the seawall, and he could tell us more about the city's water situation. Mike, I understand that the conduits from Bull Run are still shut down right now. Is that so?
That is true. The conduits have been shut down for the last couple of days, and the turbidity levels up there are very, very high, and it might not improve for some time.
What kinds of steps, then, are you urging people to take to conserve water?
Well, the stark reality is we have to cut back by about 30% in the next couple days, or we're going to have to start boiling our water by Thursday. The reason is that we're depleting our reserves in town. We're relying on the backup wells that only provide 65 million gallons a day for the entire region. And we would have to go up by Sunday to Bull Run and start using that muddy water, in which case people would have to boil it, and that would have major implications for our economy and health and everything.
Are there mandatory steps that you can take and are taking with the businesses that consume a lot of water?
Yes, there are mandatory steps for businesses, but the first thing that we've done is the mayor has issued a declaration of emergency today and banned all outdoor water use until next Thursday. Secondly, we've contacted our 100 largest users, our businesses, and most of them are voluntarily, really drastically cutting back their water usage.
Any chance that we might see a return of the water cops that we saw during the last water crisis in the city?
Well, we have no plans for that right now. Frankly, all of this is happening so quickly. We're really appealing to the kind of volunteerism that occurred at the waterfront during the last couple days, but it is a very urgent situation. We're not trying to be alarmists. People are going to have to cut back.
Okay, thank you very much, Mike Lindbergh, joining us from the downtown seawall. And of course, cutting back means short showers or no showers at all for the next few days. It means not flushing as often. It means not washing clothes that you don't need to wear, that kind of thing. There are lots of things that each of us can do. And it's not just the city of Portland. That's 800,000 people who get their water from the Bull Run system. A lot that each of us can do to conserve water.
Absolutely. And in the city of Yamhill and in Skamania, you are being urged, or you have to boil your water for a good full minute before you drink it. I want to ask you, did he say Thursday or Sunday we would have to boil water if we don't conserve enough?
He said Sunday if we don't conserve enough, through next Thursday is what I heard him to say. So that's if we don't conserve it. It looks as though at some point Bull Run customers are going to be asked to boil their water. It's just a matter of holding that time off until, well, for as long as we possibly can. But this crisis will last, I think I heard him say, at least through Thursday.
Okay. We're going to take a short break. We'll be
going into Lake Oswego is just so fast, they can't touch it. And they've actually got guys sitting here 24 hours watching to see if the dam breaks. Now, I'm told there are some folks in the area who are concerned that if it breaks, there's going to be a wall of water that comes down. I'm told that that is probably not going to happen, but that the water definitely will go up, and will go up probably pretty quickly. That's bad news for the people I've been talking to down on the canal that are just getting the heck pounded out of their homes, and their boathouses are being swept away, and their boats sank, and their fences and yards just being swept away. Yeah, it is a powerful thing, Larry.
Yeah, Pat, right now we are starting to see the effects of exactly what you were talking about down below us. And yes, I used to live down in this area many years ago, and I have seen it, and you're right. That is a relatively slow-moving, meandering canal through there, and you are looking now at houses completely surrounded by water, and the water is well up onto some of the little side streets that run off one of the main roads. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that may be South Shore, or that may be Bryant. I'm not exactly sure what road I'm looking at right now. But, yeah, Pat, that water is incredibly high. We're going to see if we can head down toward you. What you're telling me, Pat, is you're at the southwest end of that canal street?
That's correct. If you follow the canal to the Tualatin River, you'll find me. It's just amazing. I think I can hear you guys. You're in the neighborhood. It is amazing to me that it's 18 feet above where it normally is. I was talking to a guy earlier, a little bit down the canal, who said that his house alone, it's rolling 10 feet higher than normal. I mean, that's the reason that it's covering entire bottom floors of people's homes through here. I mean, it is an amazing thing to see. You know, there are people running around frantic, sandbagging, people, you know, who've been up all night watching their homes, hoping that the water wouldn't come up too quickly, and now they're seeing that in the last few hours it's come up extremely fast. It's very fluid, not to use a silly pun, but it's a very quickly changing situation here, Larry.
Yeah, Pat, do you see us and or hear us now?
Well, I think I hear you, but I don't
Okay.
see you.
Well, we are down in the basic area where you are, and it is an incredible sight, Pat. We were, of course, further west of here looking at the downtown Tualatin area, and we got a bit of a glimpse of this area, but not to this degree. And we are now beginning to see all the houses that do run along that canal. Of course, an area that I was not familiar with in regard to houseboats being there of any kind, but just regular structures, regular houses that are along the Tualatin River, as well as houses that are along that canal there that leads to Lake Oswego. I can see that they are in deep, deep flood trouble, are they not, Pat?
Yeah, Larry, you're just flying over me right now. Right now, there's a bunch of kids in the neighborhood to your left. You're right at the top of the canal that is leading down into Lake Oswego. You're flying down the very flooded Tualatin River.
Okay, we've spotted you now, Pat, and we can see the News Channel 8 news car down there. And that it looks to me like that water is threatening some very expensive homes right down there, Pat. Those are very spendy homes.
Oh, yeah. They're and to be honest with you, they're great people, too. They've been very nice, let us into their houses for a number of different views. We're actually at the end of the point, kind of in the trees. I'm trying to stand out in the field so that, Larry, we can make eye contact. But you bet, man. These are the kind of homes that cost big-time money when they get flooded. They have very valuable things inside. And, you know, it's just another reason why people are so doggone nervous here. I mean, right across from me, in fact, you're just over them right now, I can see homes that have at least half of the first floor flooded out. I mean, it is really something here, Larry.
Yeah, Pat. In fact, Carl Peterson, if you can pan almost straight down, if that's a possibility, yeah, those are the homes right there that Pat Doris is talking about. And some of those homes, Pat, from this vantage point, look like they're almost three-quarters underwater. Is that an accurate description?
I think that's right. There's one white house that I can see that that's probably right. There's also some outbuildings, some boathouses that are probably 9/10 underwater.
Now, Pat, if you could orient me again from where we are, and you have spotted us now, where are you? When you say boathouses, you mean places where people house their boats, not house boats?
That is correct. It's essentially a little garage for your boat. You don't want to leave it in the canal or in the water. You just winch it up. There's a little carport type thing over the top, probably 4 posts around it. And what's been happening up and down the canal here is that the water came up so fast during the day that a lot of people didn't have time to get their boats out of there. And so the boats just rose right up to the top of the roof of that little boathouse, and then either sank the boat or it kind of tipped the roof, and some of these just got torn off and floated away already.
Yeah, you know, it's funny, Pat, because I had assumed we flew over Lake Oswego. In fact, we used those pictures when you brought us this initial report earlier, and we flew over Lake Oswego, and to be perfectly honest, didn't think there were any problems here. On the lake proper, it doesn't appear that there are significant problems because, of course, this lake drains off on each side, and in this case, draining off here on the southwest side into the Tualatin River, and all of those houses making a bad situation on the Tualatin apparently very much worse.
Well, Larry, actually what I'm told is that the Tualatin flows down and the canal actually steals a little water from the Tualatin. So the problem is the Tualatin is flowing down the canal and into Lake Oswego at a rate that is too fast for the lake to drain it on the other end.
Oh, I see. Okay, and that's what I assumed too, because I thought that the Tualatin River fed Lake Oswego.
That's correct.
Yeah, I know on the other side, Lake Oswego dumps into the Willamette River, and I know that that is usually a large volume of water. So you're saying the Tualatin is filling that canal to the degree that it cannot be handled on the other side at the Willamette?
That's correct. The canal is 18 feet deeper than normal as it's going down into Lake Oswego, and they are dumping water as fast as they can into the Willamette, and they just can't dump it fast enough. They expect the lake to go up another foot as the day progresses here.
Well, that could be a problem because when we did fly over earlier in the day, we noticed that the water had come up very, very close to some of those homes that are right on the lake, some of the more expensive homes in the entire Portland metropolitan area. It had come up close to those, and I'm guessing if the water continues to rise in Lake Oswego, then the people there on the lake are facing some problems as well, Pat.
Oh, yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you you guys, I know you're going to be in the area. You ought to check down on the north end of the canal. Right before it feeds into the lake, there's a sharp bend that the canal takes, and it is just, you know, a roaring river, and there are some houses with those houseboats, or the boat, that's it, where they're sheltering the boats right on the corner there, and the river is just pounding the heck out of them, and I will be amazed if those things are standing when this is over. In fact, I'd be a little bit surprised if they're still standing right now.
Okay, well, we'll head in that direction right now on your orders, and I'm curious, Pat, what are the people in the neighborhoods there saying? I'm guessing some of them have been there quite a while. Have they ever seen anything remotely close to this?
Oh, no way. They've never seen anything like this. I mean, 18 feet higher than they expect in the canal. It's just, I mean, it's blowing their mind. You know, the one guy who's sitting in his backyard saying, see those posts? Well, those posts are at the top of a series of 10-foot posts. And, you know, you can't even see the 10-footers, and they're all just shaking their heads saying, my, oh, my. There's a, you mentioned Bryant Street. There's a natural gas pipe under the Bryant Street Bridge that we mentioned earlier. That's a big-time problem. And as you go down further to the north, you ought to see a lot of sandbagging going on down right against the canal. Probably as you're flying towards Lake Oswego, it will be on your right side. There's a street called Tualatin, where there are a number of homes that back onto the canal, and they are sandbagging as fast as they can. There's dump trucks coming in. There's a lot of healthy young guys with wheelbarrows, and they're working hard.
Okay, well, we are heading in that direction now, Pat, and we will see what we find when we get there. And we're going to send it back to Tracy and Jim at this point. Tracy and Jim?
All right, thanks, you guys. An incredible view there. Again, the problem, the Tualatin feeding into Lake Oswego. Lake Oswego, they're trying to drain it into the Willamette, but it's not going fast enough, and you see a lot of those canals leading into the lake just swamped tonight and houses underwater. We'll be back with more of our flood coverage right after this.
Boat operator has to work very, very quickly to push the logs into an area of the river that's safe, where the mainstream current will take it in between the bridges as opposed to banging into the structures, possibly causing damage. Once again, that's the activity going on down here in front of Waterfront Park. And once again, the park is open to the public. If people want to come down and take pictures or just look at the river, for now, it remains open. People can watch the activity down here.
Well, let's hold that picture for just a minute, Bob. We might be able to add some insight to this because we were talking about this very same situation much earlier today, sometime this morning. We were contacted by a representative of Foss Maritime, one of the tow companies involved with this activity, who advised us that it was a release of logs on purpose. And the situation is, I'm not saying that that's what's happening here, but it well could be. Those rafted logs that were corralled over the last 2 days and secured up by OMSI, the officials started letting them loose. It was well timed. They had boats standing by downstream ready to capture them, as this boat is doing, work them through the bridges, and then when they get them all through the major part of the bridges in Portland, they bring them all together again. And so the fellow from Foss called to say, hey, don't worry about that. We're doing that on purpose. We're letting them through a little bit at a time.
Oh, okay. Well, I have to admit that was a conclusion on my part, and it may be entirely wrong. And I have to admit that these guys are doing a fantastic job motoring these through the bridges. We did notice that in support of that the bridge is open to let the tug through, so they must be planned at some point to let these tugs through to do this kind of work. So that does seem correct.
Well, it's a part of river life that we would have never otherwise seen had it not been for the flood of '96. Bob, hi, thanks, and we'll get back to you.
Those tug operators are going to be the new heroes around here. They're doing a great job. Up to the minute, every 15 minutes, the latest information coming into the Channel 2 newsroom on the '96 flood. State of emergency now in 18 Oregon counties. Portions of 5 terminals at the Port of Portland now underwater. And I-5 remains closed at Chehalis. The truckers are all pulled over there. They were just letting, earlier, they were just letting smaller vehicles through. I-5 remain closed at Chehalis. That's a major block in the road there. So it continues here. The road closures, the mudslides, the landslides, and the latest on the flooding.
Let us give you some information we were just handed relative to our friends down in Columbia County, and we'll keep the Willamette River shot here, seeing that you're not apt to see again in too many years. Bob Wade from GTE called to tell us that long-distance service has been restored to the community of Vernonia. Now, you might want to space your calls and not all rush to the phones at this instant, but if you have friends in Vernonia, they are able to use their phones now and accept long-distance calls. The situation is a little bit
into Lake Oswego. So if the boathouse is in trouble, like an attached garage at anyone else's home, then the boat or the house itself is going to be in trouble. And that's what we're seeing. As Pat Doris mentioned, the problem too on the lake proper, and as I look off to the east now, I see that that is a problem as well. The lake proper is rising too, because on the other end, on the east end of this lake, where it drains into the Willamette River, and anybody who's driven by there knows that it drains at a very rapid pace. It can't keep up as it moves into the Willamette River. So right now, down here in Lake Oswego, we have a significant problem on this canal for some very expensive homes, Jim and Tracy.
You know, Larry, not that canal in particular, but many of those areas, as you drive around Lake Oswego in the summer months, I thought, boy, it's funny somebody wants to live on this canal because they'll be almost dried up. You know, there'll be absolutely no water in them. And now look at it. It's an amazing difference.
Yeah, in fact, Tracy, as you may know, and I believe my colleague Walden Kirsch has done stories about it before in Sky 8, and that is they actually drain the lake down in part of the summer, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You see lots of dried up and cracked mud along these canals. And by the way, there's more than one canal. There are actually a couple of them. They actually branch off of that main canal that is fed in by the Tualatin River, and there are a couple of them, and all the homes along there are in trouble. But you're right. It almost seems like there's no way at certain times of the year that you could even launch a boat from one of those canals. But right now, you probably can't launch a boat either, but for a very different reason, and that's because the boats are probably stuck at the top of those boathouses, Jim and Tracy.
Yeah, if they're there at all. All right, Larry Shoup from Sky 8 tonight. Some great pictures giving you a good perspective of just the effect that the waterways can have. You know, generally think of Lake Oswego as being a big problem for flooding, but there you have it, folks, especially that canal coming in from the Tualatin is rip-roaring tonight.
That's right. In fact, Larry Shoup is going to be heading back towards Tualatin, where there is an awful lot of flood damage right now in Sky 8. Right now, we want to check in with the News Channel's Carl Click. More on the situation on Sauvie Island.
Well, this is the Sauvie Island that we're used to. Behind me, look how green it is. Nice sunny day. Cows out in the nice farmland. That's what we're used to. And that's what most of the island looks like today, except if you just take a few steps the other direction, and look what you have. You have the Columbia River basically flooding onto Sauvie Island. We're told it basically came over the beaches, came right up here, flooded this part of the island, a good part of the island. It's right over Reeder Road right now. Look how it's flowing over the top of that, almost like these little rapids. We're told that it did this in 1948, part of the Vanport flood, and also in 1964, the last time we had water this high. There are dikes all around Sauvie Island that protect most of the island, but this basically just came off the Columbia River over the beaches, a part where there aren't any dikes. It came over the beaches and to where you see it now. We did talk to one gentleman named Mike Dillo, who lives out there in a trailer home.
Well, I have 2 dogs in the house, and I'm 3 feet, I'm in a mobile home, so I'm 3 feet above ground level, so hopefully, by looking here, hopefully I'm not too deep in the water. So, you know, I mean, we're all out. You know, I got my wife and 2 kids, we all made it out, and there's one girl got out last night. So that your life is the most important thing. But the animals is next. We got 2 dogs in there.
Mike Dillo is basically just waiting around, as are other residents who have homes out here, so they can get to a boat, access to a boat, so that they can go out there and check on their animals like Mike wants to, and their homes as well. They'll start right here at Reeder Road, which used to be a road, and now it's pretty much a boat route.
From all of this high water from a flood in the downtown area, the water coming up just inches away from the bottom of the flood wall itself, almost to the very line where the city worked so hard to put in the secondary wall, the protective wall, in case the water would have come higher. As we pan down across downtown towards the Morrison Bridge, we can see a lot of the debris that is still floating down the river along with us. In the air above the Morrison Bridge, 2 National Guard helicopters flying upriver as they assess the damage and look at the level of the river. On the Morrison Bridge, you can see some of the debris. It looks like a dock from somewhere upriver has stuck onto one of the 2 pilings before the Morrison Bridge. And as we look back over towards the city, you can see just how high up the water came and then stopped. Along the Morrison Bridge, you can see the dozens and dozens of people who have come to downtown and walked out onto the various bridges to take a look and see the flood of '96 and what it's done. Reporting from the Willamette River, I'm Mark Hubbard, Newscenter 6.
School, I think we had about 30 people and about that amount at the Catholic Church.
Well, it sounds like you're bouncing back this afternoon. Particularly hard hit Columbia County, the communities of Clatskanie and Vernonia, and we understand that phone service has been restored to Vernonia and will be restored to Clatskanie tomorrow morning. Thanks to Bob for checking in and bringing us an update. If you can help those folks out with the supplies that he mentioned, please. It's an easy way to help people with big needs right now.
That's right. Hey, look who joins us right now, Matt Zaffino from the Channel 2 Weather Center to bring us up to date. Matt, I know you have the latest information for us.
I have some good news from the weather watchers, too. Up in Brightwood, one of our weather watchers has been fighting the Sandy River back. He said they came within about an inch of losing about 15 homes, and the county really got to work up there, and they saved them all, and they're all doing just fine. And the river has dropped about 5 feet today up there, so some of the rivers like the Sandy and hopefully the Clackamas, a few others will begin to really drop off today. Also had a call from a weather watcher or a viewer out in along the Columbia River at 181st or 185th, the marina out there, said, hey, the river's come up about 4 inches. And what's the deal? And I believe that's just the fluctuation that we've been expecting. I'm still checking on that, but as far as I know, we shouldn't see any major rises overnight tonight, and then by tomorrow it should really begin to drop on off. Here's what's happening. Our satellite picture, you can see the clouds all on down to the south and out of the way. The next storm is going to break up. We won't be affected by that at all. High pressure is building in. And it's building in quite strongly, and if only we could have had some of this about 2 days ago, we could have foregone all of this mess. But nonetheless, it is here finally, and it's going to give us sunshine as we go into the weekend and beyond, as a matter of fact. It looks like we're going to stay dry, maybe even right on through next weekend. So that would give us, what, almost 9 days in a row of dry weather, and that'll really help the cleanup efforts that are beginning to 27 by tomorrow afternoon and then continuing with falls after that. The Willamette at Oregon City lower, around 45 and cresting, and Oregon City upper, also cresting, staying above flood stage there right on through Sunday. So we'll begin to drop, but it's got a long way to go. At Vancouver on the Columbia, slow fall right on through Sunday there, but we will remain above flood stage on Sunday, and you can see the numbers there as well. And I believe I've got one more here for you. Columbia at Longview also will remain, we'll have a slow fall, but the tidal effects will be quite strong out that way, so we'll have to keep our numbers on.
Children, Amy and Patrick, are having a hard time, I think, understanding what a big deal this is.
You think it's going to go down in the history books for them, that they'll remember this this big event?
I don't know. That's exactly what we were talking about.
What do you think? What do you think about what you're seeing? Is it a lifetime event, or will it happen again in 10 years?
I don't know, really.
What are you seeing over there? What kinds of stuff?
A lot of stuff that's just being piled over there. It's just getting piled over there a lot, and I don't know what I'm going to think about this later.
Although you'll remember being on TV, I'm sure. Thanks very much. Let's go talk to some other folks down here. Hi, have you been down here before today?
No, I actually haven't. At least not this close. I've been going over on the bridges a lot.
What do you think of what you're seeing up underneath the bridge?
Well, it certainly is something to be right here. I've been watching the TV, of course, a lot, and it's pretty incredible to see it this high. Obviously, it could have done some serious damage, but nope, not gonna happen.
Anything surprise you of what you've seen down here?
Not especially. I guess mostly watching all the coverage, you see everything, and I didn't see anything that's really different. I'm surprised at all the debris that's here. I didn't see that until now.
Great, thanks very much. Great. So, people getting their first time look at coming just right up to the seawall and taking a look over, and it's pretty amazing to a lot of folks. So this weekend, I think it's going to look like the Rose Parade down here.
Skycam at Flightgraph sure is a pretty picture of Mount Hood. Great to see those blue skies and things there at PDX moving along pretty well, but an awful lot to tell you about. We'll be back on the News Channel at 5 o'clock.
Is KGW, Northwest News Channel 8.
The best mode of transportation in our area tonight is a boat, and you can see why from Sky 8. Many communities in our area still underwater tonight due to the great flood of 1996. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the News Channel's continuing coverage of the Great Flood of 1996. I'm Tracy Berry.
I'm Jim Benham. As we get started at the 5 o'clock hour, we suspect a lot of you folks just getting home. There's an awful lot to tell you about. Want to bring you up to date on this flood situation. Here's the situation at this hour. 31 counties in Oregon and Washington state have been declared federal disaster areas. That word coming down today from the president. Both the Willamette and the Columbia rivers have crested in the Portland-Vancouver area. That's good news. However, several neighborhoods in our area still underwater at this hour. The hardest hit areas right now, including Oregon City, Tualatin, Lake Oswego, and Woodland, Washington. And the director of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, James Witt, will be touring the Northwest tomorrow afternoon to get a first-hand look at those disaster situations.
Another one of our neighborhoods still underwater tonight, Tualatin, where the downtown business area is truly struggling, evacuated this morning at about 11. Let's go up in Sky 8, where Larry Shoup is giving us a view of the Tualatin tonight. Larry?
Jim and Tracy, let's waste no time and go down below to downtown Tualatin right now. And that is what we all know, or what many of us know who have been down in this area. That is downtown Tualatin. As you mentioned, Tracy, almost completely underwater tonight. Stores, businesses, all closed. Library closed down tonight. Everything is just water. That, of course, the Tualatin River that has done that to this area. Down on the ground right now is Carol Jensen. Carol, what are you seeing from the ground?
Larry, I'm sorry. Can you ask me that question one more time?
Yeah.
I know you're just above me. I can see you.
Yeah, Carol, what are you seeing from the ground?
Yeah, some amazing sights. Boy, I'll tell you, ever since we hit the town of Tualatin, it has just been nonstop shooting and running, literally. We're at the Riverview West apartments where people here say, yeah, they wanted a river view, but not quite this much. Let me just show you the parking lot. Over here to my left, you can see that cars are just about completely submerged. If you take a look at the apartment building just behind the cars, the first level you do not see. It is underwater. Inside that building is the manager of the complex. He is up on the second story right now. He is staying there to try to protect what's left of the second level apartments that are okay at this time, because by now most of the residents have evacuated. However, take a look just behind me. You'll see some residents in a little dinghy, a little rubber dinghy. They're using paddles to make their way through the apartment complex. And I guess we're seeing some pictures from Sky 8 right now. Can you see them? Can you see the folks in the dinghy, Larry?
Yes, we can see the people in the yellow dinghy, Carol, and we saw the people in the canoe that just launched as well. This is a place we flew over earlier. It is amazing to see it from the ground. We couldn't tell just how severe the damage was, Carol, and from what you're describing on the ground level apartments are completely covered up, and we're talking about potential damage to second story apartments.
Well, what they're worried about are the belongings that are left in those second-story apartments. So that's why the manager has decided to stay. I got him to come out onto his landing, and I'm yelling at him from the street, asking him why was he still staying in his apartment. And he said, you know, if I wasn't the manager, there is no way I would be here. He doesn't feel that it's safe, but he wants to do the best he can to protect the folks who live here and who pay rent for this building. Can you see the canoe?
Yes, we can see the canoe right now, Carol.
All right, they're headed to their apartment. I talked to the gal who's sitting in the front of the canoe. She said she thinks that about 80% of her belongings are completely gone. She tried to get a few things out before the flood came in, but not much at all. She's headed back to the apartment to see what they can possibly do at this point. It is ground level. I'm guessing there's not much hope for them.
Carol, when we flew over earlier, and as we are seeing now as we pull back from that canoe, there were cars that looked like we were seeing just the very tops of them. Are there cars that are completely submerged there in that apartment parking lot?
You know, I would have to guess that there are. Not all of them, because we do see some car tops. But I'm thinking that a little further down, as the elevation begins to drop, there are probably cars that are completely underwater. There is one car that's parked just below me, and it's an interesting sight to see. The emergency flashers are going on the car. However, the car is under so much water that that's about all you can make out is just the red glare of the tail light, the emergency light that's blinking off and on.
Okay, we just saw something we thought was a car earlier submerged, and it is even further underwater. Thank you very much, Carol. We're going to move on now to the downtown Tualatin area and give folks there an idea of just how bad the flooding of the Tualatin area is. And there you go, folks, right there, just passing through the left-hand side of your screen. It was a common area, a downtown, almost a Pioneer Courthouse Square, if you will, of the Tualatin area. We're moving now into a yellow rubber raft some people are using, probably, I'm guessing, to try and survey the damage at their particular business. Trees there sticking up, looking very, very odd. You see a business sign there sticking up out of some very deep water. And looking at the way those people were walking through there, pushing that boat, it looked like it was probably waist-high water, and I'm guessing that would be 3 or 4 feet deep. Look at that. Looks like a river. It looks like something you would see somewhere out in the country, that water rushing through. But no, folks, that is downtown Tualatin. And as we were talking earlier today, not only downtown Tualatin, but much of it just recently built. The people of Tualatin extremely proud of the effort that they've made. It is a growing suburb, one of the fastest growing suburbs in the Portland area.
Hey, Larry?
They have had the money to spend, and now a lot of that money is being hit by the water. Yes, Jim?
Larry, if you can swing back a little bit to the left there, back towards the highway, there was that lumber yard that you were pointing out earlier in the afternoon. We talked a little bit about that cyclone fence, seeing all that lumber yard debris and some concern that it might pop through that cyclone fence, and you could see the fence bulging on that far side, certainly hoping that all that lumber doesn't end up floating into some of those business areas.
That's a very real concern, Jim. Yeah, you're right. And I don't know what you think, Jim and Tracy, but it looks to me, I may be wrong, and perhaps that lumberyard is a barometer, but it looks to me like the water is higher than when we were speaking several hours ago.
Oh, Larry, I think it's definitely higher. Either that or that car slipped downhill, because we were seeing the whole top what looked like a ski rack on one of those cars at the apartments. And, you know, now we don't see it at all. And you have to wonder, especially with those apartment buildings, certainly last night the warnings were going out for anyone who lived in low-lying areas to evacuate and to take their belongings with them, and yet it doesn't appear that anybody moved their cars there. City officials telling us today that the river just rose very dramatically and very quickly, so perhaps people were just caught unaware.
Perhaps caught unaware and perhaps caught unbelieving, Tracy, because I think that a lot of those people, as you and Jim and myself discussed earlier today, it is hard to believe that this Tualatin River, which is generally so sedate, would move so rapidly into this downtown area and inundate it so high. You are looking now at more pictures of what's downtown Tualatin. I think we're zooming out from a Pizza Hut restaurant, and as you can look from foreground all the way to background, nothing but high water, Jim and Tracy.
You know, Larry, another problem in that area as well, part of the reason they evacuated is because one of the sewer pipes, maybe several of them, have broken, and raw sewage is certainly mixed into that area, so they wanted to get everyone they could out of it. Now, what are we looking at, Larry? Is that the Fred Meyer we saw earlier?
Indeed, Tracy.
Well, there's
yes.
less parking lot there now.
Yeah, you are correct. In fact, that probably, again, yet another barometer there. There was a lot more parking lot there, and as we found out, that Fred Meyer obviously closed down tonight, and the cars in the parking lot, either cars that were stuck there and failed to get out, or probably more likely, because there is some access from the east side here, more likely probably employees, Jim and Tracy, who are trying to do what they can to make sure that the Tualatin River doesn't come into the store.
You know, Larry, even on a decent rush hour night when things are moving relatively smoothly, there's always such a bottleneck there at Nyberg and Martinazzi, with so many of the streets and so much of the access closed off. From your vantage point, are you starting to see some jams building up, traffic jams building up in that area?
Yeah, we are seeing some significant ones, Jim. As I was looking, as we were coming over here just before the 5 o'clock hour, we were over in Lake Oswego, where the canal leading from the Tualatin River to the lake is causing a lot of problems over there with flooding along that canal and possibly in the lake itself. And as I looked over here toward Interstate 5, the backup is substantial. We are going to be moving over to that very soon here. We're starting to move in that direction, and now you're seeing Interstate 5. Once you get past Nyberg Road off-ramp, which is closed in the southbound direction, once you get past the Nyberg Road exit, moving in the northbound direction, the traffic is moving very slow. It generally is slow this time of day anyway, only because not too far north of here is where 217 merges in with I-5, and the confluence of those two freeways creates quite a traffic jam. But I can even see a police car going in the emergency left-hand lane right now, moving down exactly. It looks to me, I can't tell if it's an Oregon State Police car or not, but it is a white police car down there. It is moving in the emergency lane. Exactly why, I'm not sure. I'm not spotting any accidents right now, but I guess that policeman is probably trying to check out and make sure that all the access is free through there. But you're now looking over the southbound off-ramp to Nyberg Road, completely closed down tonight, Jim and Tracy.
You know, Larry, you've shown us the incredible scene there in Tualatin on the west side of I-5. You could perhaps fan over and fan out to the left onto the left side of our screen and on the east side of the interstate. Just the incredible scene there along some of those strip malls, and right across from the Sweetbriar Inn, just a whole lake is developed back there.
Indeed it has. In fact, you mentioned that strip mall, and our photographer Carl Peterson is zooming into that right now. In the lower part of your screen there is a building under construction, and then right there at the very top right-hand part of your screen is that strip mall. And as you can see, the water of the Tualatin has gone all the way up to the back of it, and we cannot see the bottom part of that strip mall right now. We are going to continue flying right now over the Tualatin River, and I think we will head toward the Lake Oswego area and show you the problems with that canal, and we'll let you know when we get there, Jim and Tracy.
All right, Larry Shoup, thanks very much. Pilot Kim Ragnoni, gentlemen, thanks. And we can say from Woodburn, Washington, over to Lake O, Tualatin, up into the gorge around I-84, and then to points all the way in the other direction to St. Helens. Sky 8 was really up checking out the worst of the flood damage today, and we will be bringing you more of that Sky 8 video throughout this newscast from the hardest hit areas.
One of the areas we showed you not long ago was Lake Oswego. You saw where the canal is rushing in the water to the main lake area. Everything is rising, but those canal areas are the very hardest hit, and they are calling for more volunteers tonight in the city of Lake Oswego to try to help them out. I believe we have some information that we can pass along where to go to help. Volunteers, please go to Jean Road. That's right off of Boone's Ferry there, you know, over the G.I. Joe area. There's some businesses. You go down just a little bit more toward Lake Oswego, and you'll run right into Jean Road. Those of you who live in the area probably know where that is. Calling for volunteers there. Also, we'll pass along quickly that the town of Vernonia also needs more volunteers to sandbag their levee, so the pleas are going out tonight. Yeah, the people calling in from the city of Lake Oswego specifically using the term urgent. They've been having sandbagging help all along. Right now, putting out an urgent call for help. Go to that 5705 Jean Road address right there. The News Channel's Shannon Burney is joining us now over the phone. She is in that Lake Oswego area with more on the damage. Shannon?
Hello, I'm on Sarah Hill Lane, which butts up or backs into the Tualatin Canal. It's a canal that usually goes about 2 to 3 feet. Well, right now, I can't judge the water level, but I'd say it's easily 6 to 8 feet into people's basements, into the bottom level of people's homes. We're seeing folks who've had just a wonderful response, though, from neighbors, from passersby, people they don't even know, perfect strangers who've come by, helped them move all of their furniture, all of their furnishings and belongings that are in those lower floors out of there. And in some cases, people say it took only 10 minutes to get everything that they were worried about getting water damage from, everything moved out. And we're seeing even more houses here trying to get belongings, furniture moved out right now. We have about 7 houses here on the canal that are directly affected, but the water level at the edge of this canal, at the edge of this Sarah Hill Lane, it's starting to rise too, and folks are getting a little nervous. And in fact, I talked to one homeowner, Carol Reed, and she says that luckily she's going to move all of her belongings over to her daughter's house, but her daughter too lives on one of the canals that feed into Oswego Lake, and so they're worried about whether or not the water will reach her daughter's house, will cause flooding in her daughter's house.
Great, Shannon. We'll check back with you a little bit later on. Obviously, many of those homes in danger. Shannon says the water's already in some of them.
Sky 8 headed in that direction right now. We'll have more live coverage from Sky 8 coming up.
We'll be right back with extended team coverage of the Great Flood of '96 on Northwest News Channel 8, the new news leader.
Far cry from what some of the other areas are experiencing today. One of the hardest hit areas right now, Lake Oswego, dealing with some major flooding on some of the canals leading into the lake. Sky 8 is over that area now. We go back now to Larry Shoup. What can you see, Larry?
Well, what we can see, Tracy, is that is the Tualatin River feeding into the canal that feeds Lake Oswego. And what is happening is that the Tualatin River has risen so quickly that that canal is now taking on far, far too much water, much more water than it is accustomed to taking. Pat Doris told us about 45 minutes ago or so that that canal is about 18 feet higher than it normally is, 18 feet higher than normal. Remember, that canal runs through, and what happens there with that canal is that it is rather narrow through there and somewhat steep in some parts with houses along it. You're looking right now at the Tualatin River as it feeds right into that canal, and Kim, our pilot here, Kim Ragnoni, if you can take us up the canal, Kim, and we'll see what we can see. But basically, as we go up that canal, we are seeing boathouses that are completely submerged, and as I mentioned earlier, many of those boathouses along that canal, for any of the people who have driven down South Shore perhaps, know that many of those houses along that canal have basically attached boathouses. It is very much similar to someone who lives in a residential neighborhood and has a garage attached to their house. It's the same kind of thing. So what is happening is many of those boathouses are submerged now, and therefore I'm guessing that some of these houses are taking on water as well. We are moving down that canal toward Lake Oswego right now, and Carl, if there's any way to get a little bit closer in, we can give folks an idea. There is a house completely...
You don't want them to do that?
We don't want them to do that in any case. We want them to use a broom, because the last thing we want to do is further saturate the drainage system by using the water and by pushing things down the drain.
What happens if we don't reduce our consumption this 30 or 50%?
If we don't do that, we are going to have to make an announcement to boil our water. We don't want to do that because that is going to severely impact hospitals, restaurants, food processing firms, and we rather not do that. So we're first asking people not to use water for outside purposes and, quite frankly, to conserve the way they know how for inside purposes.
Well, thank you, Mayor, for that announcement. We hope people will heed it and we won't have to boil our water.
Thank you, Shirley and Mike.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mark Hendricks, who covers health issues for us, is here to fill us in on some disturbing information about the danger floating in the water that's flooding around us.
And to tell us what we can do to protect ourselves. Mark?
Yeah, Mike and Shirley, it's important to take seriously the warnings that we've been hearing about staying away from this flood water. Much of the runoff from the flood is teeming with raw sewage. That's because a growing number of the Portland area's sewage treatment plants are either partially submerged or combined sewers are overflowing. And while the plants continue to operate at maximum capacity, wastewater collection systems can't handle the heavy overflow, and raw sewage is leaking from the treatment plants and through manholes, gushing into our houses, apartments, buildings, and streets. It's creating an immediate concern for public health. The floodwaters may contain human bacteria and viruses such as hepatitis A and salmonella, to name just a few. Until the treatment plants can get things under control again and the floodwaters recede, the health department recommends, that is, we take a few precautions. Parents should not allow their children to come in contact with or play in the floodwater. If you must have contact with the floodwater, wear protective clothing such as rubber boots and gloves. Cover up any cuts or infections. And remember to thoroughly wash any exposed skin with soap and clean water after coming in contact with the water, especially before you prepare or eat food. By the way, Mike and Shirley, if we're ordered in the Portland area and elsewhere to boil our water, boil it at a rolling boil for at least a minute to kill off the contaminants in it. Back to you.
Thanks for your report, Mark. I heard this morning Executive Director of Metro, Mike Burton, saying that he is more concerned around those sewage treatment plants of the river water getting in than he is of the sewer water getting out, because it is raw sewage floating out there in the river.
Well, you're going to want to hear Jim's forecast. We hung in there, and today we were blessed with sun.
Yeah, it feels good. His forecast for the weekend when we return.
I don't think this is a record for the month of February, but that's well above. That's probably about, just as if memory serves, about twice our normal total for the month, and we did that in 5 days. Eugene, almost 10 inches of rain, and out in Brightwood, a foot, just under 1 foot of rain, and that, of course, is on top of all the snow. And again, I've been talking about this the last couple of days. That's why we've seen all this flooding, because of the heavy rains melting all that snow. Here are the satellite pictures, and this is how it looked about 12 hours.
Good idea here of what those areas are. I'm going to rattle them off quickly for the state of Oregon. We're talking about Benton, Clackamas, Clatsop, Columbia, Hood River, Lane, Lincoln, Lynn, Marion, Multnomah, Polk, Sherman, Tillamook, Umatilla, Union, Wasco, Yamhill, and Washington counties. Also in Washington, the counties include Asotin, Clark, Clackamas, Cowlitz, Kickatas, Clittitat, Lewis County, Pierce County, Skamania County, Thurston County, Walla Walla, Whitman, and Yakima. So you can see we're talking just a huge number of counties at stake here, 31 that are in line for some federal disaster help, and they're certainly going to need it. That's right. The director of the Federal Emergency Management Administration, James Witt, will be in town tomorrow along with Senator Ron Wyden to tour some of the damaged areas. People over at OMSI frantically trying to keep the Willamette from ruining so much that they have tried to establish over there. Had some problems in the basement, and that continues to be a problem. We've got some pictures of what it looked like earlier today over at OMSI. And this is not OMSI. For example, we're taking it up to Interstate 84. Tracy, this is the mudslide, and you can see the dry weather finally allowing them back in there to do some work on those slides. That's right. The interstate is completely shut off. We want to remind you, between Troutdale and Hood River. This work is going on today is to try to clear a section of 84, but it's a massive slide, folks. This slide sent trees, boulders, and tons of mud right down onto the highway. Cars and trucks were caught in the middle of the slide. At least one home was destroyed. Trucker Billy Bright just missed being hit by the trees and rocks, and sheriff's deputies now tell us that all the people caught in this mess are accounted for. That is the good news, but it will be days before this section can be cleared, and there's also damage to Union Pacific Railroad tracks as well. Some of the problems that we've seen up in the gorge is that those mudslides are coming down and almost swallowing up homes that are there by the interstate. You go into the West Hills neighborhoods in Portland, and some of the problems there, the homes themselves are in danger of sliding down the sides of those hills. A major mudslide this morning just wiped out an empty lot in the exclusive Council Crest neighborhood right next door. Check this out, a most precarious situation for that home. A building inspector has already condemned it. At least 3 others are in danger as well.
We had a slide here, and the bank here is continually peeling back off, and it's peeled back to where some of the supports under the house are missing. And on this end of the house, it appears that only one support is holding this end of the house up.
Now, down below, the mud and trees are blocking Fairmount Boulevard. Firefighters say most of the erosion appears to have tapered off. Things seem to be more stable, but if and when more rain does fall, they say the slide will likely continue, and those homes just might go. We're going to hear more from Joe Sotilli in just a moment, but luckily no rain in the forecast for now. Getting around town still a challenge today. We want to give you a look from our Skycam network. This is the Northwest Skycam at the OMSI Tower. That exit onto I-84 off of I-5 is still blocked tonight. High water, the problem, backed up the drains from the water in the Willamette, so very slow going northbound as everybody tries to detour. This is the situation looking back from the Northwest Skycam at Cedar Hills Mall, looking back from 217 to eastbound on the Sunset, and still some lane blockages down in the area around the zoo. And as you can see, the backup goes all the way to 217. And just to give you a little breather here, a gorgeous shot of Mount Hood as the sun starts to set from our Skycam at Flightcraft. It is a beautiful city. We're just struggling a bit at this time. Stay tuned. More flood coverage still to come.
A roadway before you can lose control of a car.
Well, not a lot of standing water. We can have a lot of water, meaning a lot of water going on the roadway and running off, but just enough to fill the grooves of those tires and actually cause the car. Hydroplaning means really floating and losing the ability of losing the contact with the pavement of the tire, meaning you have virtually lost control of the vehicle. And in that kind of a situation, the worst thing that can happen is that you apply the brakes in an abrupt fashion and try to steer out of it. You need to let the car come back on its own by decelerating, taking your foot off the pedal, let the car come back and steer slowly in the direction of the skid.
Okay, Bernie Giusto, I hope you get some rest soon. Yeah. I can hear a little fatigue in your voice. We're looking at a visual scene. I don't think you can see it, Bernie, but that stack up on the Markham upper deck going toward the I-84 exit that is closed. And boy, it's been a jam all day, and we can expect it to continue to do so. Our thanks to Bernie Giusto and all of the men and women of the Oregon State Police. Bernie's done a great job for us in keeping us informed, and all the others have done a great job in keeping the highways as relative free from problems as they possibly can. can through all of this.
Yeah, thanks, Bernie, and all the people at Oregon State Patrol. Let's switch now to Steve Dunn, who's standing by in the newsroom with, you have some latest pictures for us, Steve? Some pictures that just have come in?
You guys won't believe this. You know, we've seen some wild stuff floating down the Willamette throughout the day today, where we saw a refrigerator, we saw some fences, what have you. I want to show you some home video shot. This is the Molalla River south of Canby. This is a bridge. Look at the logs backed up there. Look at the people looking at that, but keep a close eye on this stuff, because wait until you see what's buried down in those logs. I mean, this stuff is stacked right up here south of Canby on this bridge. I'm not sure the name of the bridge, but if you keep watching closely, you're going to see some cars. We have several cars buried underneath them. You see them there? Isn't that something? Not only that, but we also have coming up a trailer that's buried on the other side of this, and also a camper in the middle of all these logs. You see it there? That is the trailer, and we're about to see the camper. So we have definitely seen it all. Some amazing stuff. This, again, Molalla River south of Canby. John Getz shot this for us, a home video, and it is absolutely incredible. Isn't that something, guys?
Wow, it's hard to believe, and you worry when you see these cars.
I know it.
Things stuck in these logs. You wonder, okay, I hope the occupants got out safe.
Yeah, and I wish I had more information on that, Jeff, but this was just brought into us by John Getz, and we were just kind of looking through it and spotted the car. So I'm not sure, but I'm hoping and assuming that everyone's all right there.
All right, Steve Dunn in the newsroom. Thanks, Steve. We'll get back to you as well.
Yeah.
Okay, you're watching a storm coverage here on Channel 2. We're coming up on 5:30. If you're just joining us, stay with Channel 2 News. We have all the latest pictures and information coming into you. One of the worst hit areas, Vernonia, we talked about that. It was almost landlocked because the roads leading into Vernonia were blocked by mudslides and waters. They've been washed out in many cases. They've just restored phone service there. Reporter Mark Hass took Chopper 2 to Vernonia. That was the only way he could get in. Here's the latest pictures.
Vernonia woke up Thursday morning to a nightmare. Nehalem River and Rock Creek flooded out the northeast Oregon timber town. Rowboats the only way to get around. And adding to the frustration, access roads were washed out, cutting off the flow of supplies, food, utility workers, and a way out of town. For people like Margaret Hunt, the nightmare continues.
Anxious to look inside?
We're curious, very curious, but I think the water came up pretty high, so there probably isn't much left that's usable anymore.
High water ripped the deck off of Bud Gibson's house and left it in a neighbor's yard.
This is my deck that was freestanding in front of the front of the house there. Yes, it just, the water picked it up and moved it right away from the house.
The worst thing was that it happened so fast here in Vernonia. In just a matter of hours, the Nehalem River flooded the entire city. No one had time to prepare. That means more damage, more cleanup. What was under 4 feet of water yesterday is now under a layer of mud.
Yeah, I moved everything upstairs.
Grocery stores stack their spoiled food out on the sidewalk. With roads cut off, they are quickly running out of supplies.
They're out of bread, they're out of hamburger, they're out of ice, they're almost out of beer.
Shelters were set up in schools and churches. People needed food, a place to sleep, and a need to be with others.
And I think the thing that was on people's minds was, well, we can handle this for one night. When you consider there are people sleeping under bridges all the time.
Through it all, there were no reported injuries or fatalities. Now, as one man said, it's time to roll up our sleeves and clean up. In Vernonia, Mark Hass, Channel 2 News.
Okay, we want to bring you up to date. Highway 30 and Highway 47 still blocked at this hour in and out of Vernonia. They do need some supplies in Vernonia, rubber gloves, cleaning equipment, and some people to reconnect the electrical line. So they need some manpower there. So if you can help the residents of Vernonia, we should be giving you a phone number a little bit later, since they finally have restored phone service into Vernonia. So we'll keep you up to date on that.
Well, the flooding hit southwest Washington extremely hard as well. This is the Woodland, Washington area where hundreds of homes are underwater following flooding from the Lewis and Columbia rivers. 2,000 people in Cowlitz County had to be evacuated today. Elizabeth Bermuda spent the day in the towns of Woodland and Kalama, where there's little people can do to save their property.
It doesn't look like any planes will be landing at the Woodland Air Park Airport anytime soon. High waters from the Lewis River have covered the entire airstrip, including what used to be 2 airplane hangars. Right across from the airport is a flooded-out mobile home community, about a quarter of them owned by elderly people.
You know, I thought it might come up in the street or something, but I didn't believe this because, of course, you know, with the river, who knows?
And one of the toughest things for the residents living at this mobile home park is that they only got a half-hour warning to get out of their homes. For many of them, that meant just getting out with the clothes on their back.
They only gave us 30 minutes. That isn't time to get very much.
There are a lot of people that just got up and walked out, and they had a truck with a loudspeaker. Get out, get out, get out. We thought a crash was coming.
But beyond all the frustration, there was some joy and relief. Dixie Dormius's cat, Misty, showed up after being missing for a day and a half. Further north in the small town of Kalama, floodwaters filled the downtown business district, damaging about 20 businesses and washing away several cars. Even so, folks here say they can handle it.
Just this year alone, I mean, it's been, you know, you've had the high winds, you've had the rains, you've had the snow, you've had the freezing. I operate tow truck too, and it's, you know, it's just nonstop.
Paul and Jeff, I am in downtown Kalama right now, where the downtown business area is virtually flooded with about 4 feet of water from the Columbia, the Cowlitz, and the Kalama rivers. Now, this might not seem like a very big deal compared to some of the stuff that you've seen earlier today, but when you're in a town of 1,800 people, this is really big news to them. Down here, they have lost about 20 to 25 buildings. 2 of those, one of them is City Hall, and one of them is the police department. One good thing to point out that when we first got here, the water was about right here, and it seems to have receded about 5 feet or so. So that's really good, because they were expecting the tide to come in and push water out, and they had sandbags on standby, but it doesn't look like they're going to be needing those tonight. What you can't see, which is further south of the street, is in a whole area that's by the Kalama River, where there are about 40 homes that have been inundated with water. They are flooded. There are also some cattle out there that have died because of the flooding, so it's not a good situation out there. It doesn't look too good. But over here, things are looking much better. The National Guard is standing by to handle traffic, to handle people that are just out looking at things, and that's the situation out here in Kalama. Back to you guys.
Okay, certainly good news, Elizabeth.
Yes.
The way you showed us that the waters are actually receding there.
Right.
And boy, everywhere you go across the Northwest, flooding problems. Thanks, Elizabeth. And there are also some traffic problems in that area along I-5. Now, I-5 is closed at Chehalis, and the only folks they're letting get through on I-5 are trucks that have to get through, Paul, and they're guiding them through there. So there's a big slide up there in Chehalis, and that's a major route that remains closed at this hour.
Back to the pictures that we've been sharing with our audience throughout the day. This is the Willamette River in the West Lynn area. It's much the same as you see in downtown Portland, except in this particular case, it's not a seawall and an east side riverbank the Willamette's moving through. It's a residential area. So many homes underwater, or at least have water up to their lower levels out there. I shouldn't say underwater, that's not correct. And the river continues to send by anything it can pick up along the way, and if it gets close to the shore and out of the current, it can crash into what's over there.
Okay, we have some pictures from Hayden Island as well, and that was a big concern here. Oh, look at that, though, Paul, before we leave that in West Lynn.
Here's what's happening out at Hayden Island. Police did allow the residents that had left Hayden Island and the condominiums and private residents out there, they did let them back on the island today. They did not allow access to people that did not live out there. But it was slow going for the people that were returning to their homes on Hayden Island due to the high water out there. And again, this isn't water from the slough or from the Columbia River. This is just backup storm water. And this was the way it was driving in out there. And it was tough going. It was further frustrated by the fact that you had to take the right exit north and south off of I-5 to get to, respectively, the east and west ends of the island. So people on Hayden Island going home today, and we'll find some difficult situations.
South into Salem and Marion County, where the cleanup is beginning, and I got to tell you, they're going to have to pull together down there. It has been tough the last couple of days. Ed Teachout, Channel 2's Ed Teachout, shows us what they're up against tonight.
The water is down 4 feet in the center of Salem, but the devastation following the flood is only beginning to soak in.
You know, the river getting as high as it did has just backed up Mill Creek, so I'm getting re-flooded now. The water's getting higher again. But, you know, what can you do? All you can do is smile and say, oh, well.
All day, city crews work to unplug debris from bridges and roads. The floodwaters are so full of toxins from Salem's failed sewage plant, thousands of people evacuated since yesterday aren't being allowed to go home. Even though the floodwaters never reached homes evacuated in West Salem, those returning today say the mass exodus was worth it.
We came down, after we got everything moved out to see how much more things had been rising, and at that point in time I was glad I had everything moved out because the way it looked like it was just going to keep going.
More than 30 roads in Marion County still remain closed due to slides and washouts. Now that the floodwaters are starting to recede, there's still lots of hidden dangers. Now here's a perfect example on the highway outside of Turner. The hydraulics of the flood were so strong it's undercut the pavement here. This gravel truck just simply got too close to the edge and the weight broke the highway off and it fell into the ditch. The tiny town of Turner left several residents with nothing but a gutted house.
Where we're standing here, there was about close to 3 feet of water running right down this road, and I was worried that maybe the whole structure would lift out of here. But so far, so good. Yeah.
The deck didn't do so well.
The deck's now wedged against the town's bridge. The post office is finally above water. The mail hasn't gone through for 3 days, but they're finally able to get to the mess.
We need to protect the mail. That's our top priority, to protect the mail, because if we would have had it come in and been all wet.
And while many local rivers continue to fall, homeowners can only wonder the ravages they'll reveal. Now, we've just heard that those 10,000 residents in Kaiser that were evacuated yesterday, that about 8,000 of them are now being allowed to go back into their home. And it looks like that Salem sewage treatment plant, they're getting that back online, which is cleaning up the waters and the threat to bacterial infection for those people living in that area. But at the same time, we have heard that Pudding Creek is backing up to the north of Salem, which is causing about 30 more people in a subdivision out there to be evacuated as we speak now. So still some problems out there from different floodwaters going different ways. Even Pudding Creek, we've heard, used to flow southeast, is now flowing northeast just because of the different turbulence caused by, you know, these high waters that are now starting to go down, causing more turbulence. But right here in Salem anyway, compared to Portland right now, it's like the cleanup is back on.
Okay, and I imagine they're going to uncover more problems as the cleanup continues. Ed Teachout, appreciate the hard work. I know you've been up for almost 36 hours now down there in Marion County, and we really appreciate it, and I'm sure they're going to need more volunteers as the cleanup continues.
It's been tough for all of us.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Well, now that we've showed you a number of troubled areas in both states, Oregon and Washington, we should also tell you that President Clinton has designated dozens of Oregon and Washington counties as disaster areas today. That makes it possible for flood victims to get temporary housing and family grants and low-interest loans. For Oregon residents, a FEMA office will be set up in Salem. Here are the counties affected in Oregon. They are Benton, Clackamas, Clatsop, Columbia, Hood River, Lane, Lincoln, Lynn, Marion, Multnomah, Polk, Sherman, Tillamook, Umatilla, Union, Wasco, Yamhill, Washington, and the Warm Springs Reservation as well. Moving over to Washington State, you can see the ones that are familiar to you. They include Clark, Columbia, Cowlitz, the Klickitat County, Lewis, Pierce, Skamania, Thurston, Walla Walla, Whitman, and Yakima. Now, if you live in those areas and do have damage, you may contact the FEMA office at this toll-free number, 1-800-462-9029. For the hearing impaired, there's a second number, 1-800-462-7585. But with the presidential declaration, we are now entitled to additional federal assistance.
18 minutes before 6 o'clock, and this is the scene on Portland's waterfront. Things are quiet. The river has reached its peak. And we're with Channel 2 News as we continue our storm coverage of the big flood of '96. We'll be right back with some more pictures and late information. Stay with Channel 2.
Closed captioning of Channel 2's extended storm team coverage is brought to you by your local Jeep and Eagle dealers.
Keep it on Channel 2 for extended storm team coverage.
By truck, by boat, by helicopter, whatever it takes, Channel 2 News brings you closer. You can tell a breaking news station by where they take you and how they get there. Fast. Channel 2 News, your storm team in the spirit of the North Wall.
By the waters, and also we had some trailer homes flooded out by the waters. It was a big mess. It also
brought a lot of curious onlookers to the riverside to see what types of problems the flood had brought. But with all that said, we should tell you this, that we have some good news to report, and it's very gratifying to be able to tell people this, and that is that the river is going down, and we have a lot of different pieces of physical proof to show you just how much the river has gone down. I want to show you something behind me. First of all, you can see these little bulbs of these little domes, these white domes. Those are actually parking lights for this RV park out here. Now, earlier today when we got here, about 1 o'clock, I guess, you could barely see the tops of these things. They kind of look like buoys floating in the water. So that shows you how much the river has dropped. It is now a little bit under 28 feet. Also, while we've been waiting for our live shot to happen, we keep moving our stuff toward the water, and you can look here and see how the pavement is wet. That's because the waters have been receding, and they continue to recede. This, of course, happening over a couple of hours, but to even show you how things have happened just over the past few minutes, we stuck a stake over here on the side of the bank here, marked it with a little piece of orange tape. We did this a little bit before 5 o'clock, and well, I can't see what time it is right now, getting close to 5:30, I would imagine. And take a look here. At 5:45, just 45 minutes after we stuck this thing in here, the water has almost gone down 5 inches. Of course, this is a very crude measurement, and I'm no expert in hydrology or anything like that, but anyone can tell that this water is dropping, and it has continued to drop. So I guess what we could say here is that perhaps we'll be able to go home pretty soon. Everyone will be happy here. Jim, Tracy?
Yeah, certainly some of those folks in homes like these won't be going home for a while in Gulston.
We're showing pictures from your boat tour earlier today, Gulston, when the gentleman took you around, showed you some of the new construction and some of the older homes where they were just right up to their windows with water.
Yes, it was quite a sight. Most of these people, everyone that we could tell, evacuated. Of course, a lot of those people, I'm sure, are curious and eager to get back and see what their homes look like. But, yeah, you could see stuff floating around in the bottom floors, and it was quite a mess. Of course, some of the trailer homes out there, they can't take this kind of punishment. They're not put together like some other homes are. It's quite a mess, and, of course, quite a sad situation for some of the families out there. We're seeing a lot of stories unfolding out here with the people of Woodland. They've been very gracious to us and gracious enough to talk to us, and there are some good things happening out there right now. Steve Bartlestein joining me. You've been following a group of people who've been really helping out a lot of folks out here.
Right, the folks all today getting together and sandbagging for the levee. It is a little bit weaker than they wanted it to be, but again, as you said, the water is going down. That's a good thing. We're going to show you their efforts a little bit later on. In fact, we'll come back here in just a couple of moments. We'll feed that story so you folks can see all the work that they've been doing here all day long. It's pretty amazing when folks get together like they have.
It is, and they've all really pulled together. We see a lot of people helping each other out. People who seem to be complete strangers, although you think just about everyone would know everybody in Woodland. Still, we've heard some great stories coming out of this town today.
And it's interesting, the folks that come up to our truck and say, thanks for coming by so that we know what's going on. A lot of the folks that said they came down from the hills so that they could actually see what was going on. We're trying to bring them up to date. In fact, here's some Sky 8 video that we're looking at right now over Woodland. And you and I both took boat tours today to show some of the devastation, and many of the folks, and I think this is a great point, almost every person I spoke with today had insurance. And that's good. I mean, because many times I covered a hurricane in 1989, Hurricane Hugo in South Carolina, and many of those folks did not. And those were such sad stories, so at least they're going to get back some of their belongings via insurance.
What I heard from one of the people who live out here, actually, some of the people who live along the river are required to have insurance, so it is a great thing, right. Because, you know, you don't need it until a day like today, and then, of course, you are so happy, so glad, and very fortunate that you have it, because something like this can just take a whole lifetime's worth of achievement and worth of you know, money right out the back window, the back door. Really sad situation.
Yeah. So we're going to come back to you in a couple of minutes. I guess have them stand by there, and we'll feed the story and let you see some of the folks coming together here in Woodland.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Meanwhile, the good news out here right now, the Lewis River continues to go down. It is still way, way, way above its banks, but it is slowly and achingly making its way back down. Of course, that will still be quite a while before it gets back to normal out here in Woodland, guys.
Talking about the achy breaky of all this in Gulston, I'm thinking of the emotional heartache. The gentleman who gave you that boat ride today, visibly shaken by what he saw. It's his hometown. He knows a lot of people, and clearly he very upset by what a lot of people are going to be facing once all that water goes away.
Oh, that's right. He, you know, would say, oh, there's so-and-so's house, or there's so-and-so's house, and it's kind of like driving down a street maybe after a tornado or something, and it's just, you know, it's there in front of you, and these are people you know or you love, or you've helped them out some way. And yeah, I think it was hard for him. I think it's hard for a lot of people to sit down on, you know, watch this stuff on their TV sets. But yeah, of course, the good side of all this is a lot of people are helping each other out.
Yeah, very nice indeed. We'll have more from that area in Woodland. We want to bring you up to date real quick on the traffic situation there. Just north of Kalama, there's been a mudslide closing I-5 down to one lane. They're not letting truck traffic go through, and it really doesn't matter because in Chehalis, there's still water over the freeway, all of the lanes. That will be closed, at least they're thinking, maybe for a couple of days.
Yeah, you don't have to go that far, though, Tracy, obviously, to find a problem along Interstate 5. This is from the Northwest Skycam at OMSI Tower, a live look at folks who would typically be trying to feed onto the Banfield eastbound. They are getting into that area and realizing that the eastbound ramp from northbound 5 has been closed off. They're rerouting people along Coliseum and then back in that area down towards the Banfield, I-84, but it's very, very slow going on Interstate 5 northbound through the city. Unless you want to go south there on I-5, it looked great. And then we go out to the Sunset, which has been a mess from the get-go, really, for the last couple of days. A little break during the middle of the day, but most of the time it has looked just like this, backed up, most people say, all the way to Hillsborough, very slow going, eastbound into town, narrows down to one lane. I think two they opened it up to for a while at least, and then feeding in from 217 just really congests the area as well. There's just a great deal of traffic all over town tonight. We understand that most of the major roads, it's very, very slow going, so be patient, everyone. Right now we want to send it back up to Sky 8. Larry Shoup's got a traffic update over Portland. Larry?
It's darn nasty, you guys. You were talking about the situation down there at I-5 in the Banfield where that ramp is closed. Every route out of downtown Portland heading to the south is equally nasty. You're looking down there right now. I believe that is Macadam. That is Macadam down below us now, backed up well into town. That is a problem. We just flew up from Oregon City. As you know, we were talking to you from down there just a few minutes ago. Our picture breaking up a little bit. Be patient with us. We'll have it tuned in for you. But Interstate 5 southbound, extremely slow out of downtown. Barber Boulevard, extremely slow out of downtown. All of the routes heading south out of downtown are bumper to bumper at this hour, Jim and Tracy.
Really deja vu. That's exactly what we saw going on yesterday, although yesterday we at least knew what the problem was. There was, of course, the mudslide and the Terwilliger curves, and then a serious accident happening just south of those slowed things down even further. There were two mudslides on Barber, and, you know, there could well be still some cleanup work going on from those slides.
Yeah, there could be some problems in that regard, too. We are about to fly over Interstate 5, and we're seeing some flashing lights down below. Boy, not too far south of downtown, we're seeing some flashing lights. We're making a turn there. You can see Macadam here along the Willamette River on the west side, and you can see all the tail lights that are backed all the way up. But we're making a rather drastic turn here so we can give you an idea of what's going on Interstate 5 down below us now. And coming into your picture, you see those flashing lights. If we can move down, Carl, there you go. You're seeing some trucks there, and we're seeing some flashing lights. Now, exactly what is happening, we don't know, but there are some vehicles stopped alongside the road there. There are some flashing lights, either police or tow trucks or something, some type of emergency vehicles there, causing this backup on Interstate 5. Yeah,
Larry,
go ahead, Jim.
Larry, I've got a hunch the flashing lights appear to be on that advisory sign as you are actually traveling north on Interstate 5, and coming through that area today, if that is indeed, that's the northbound lanes that are moving well, right?
That's a stalled truck, though, we're looking at. I can tell it's a big rig, maybe a double rig, Larry.
Exactly. In fact, our pilot, Kim Ragnoni, pointed that out to me as he was looking out his pilot side. Right. Yeah, it is a stalled truck right there, Jim and Tracy.
On the other side, those flashing lights are advising people of the Coliseum, the detour up around 84, advising people that they'll have to detour and they can't get on 84 eastbound. They have to take the Coliseum exit.
Well, that truck obviously needs to get out of the way, but there's so much traffic, he probably can't make it over, and I'm not sure there's any place for him to go to.
Well, that's the problem too, Jim and Tracy. He's in the middle lane.
Yeah.
Unless what's going to happen, obviously, is we're going to have to get some police vehicles down there, and we're going to have to get somebody to stop traffic in one of those lanes and let him move to one side or the other. That is, of course, if he's able to move. Now, if he's disabled and he's not able to move, we're in trouble. But somebody is going to have to stop the other lane to move him over. And, of course, what that means is, while they're doing that, Interstate 5 will be like it was last night, down to one lane.
Yeah, it's slowing down pretty abruptly already, Larry. Obviously, the police are probably trying to make their way there, and it's going to be slow going for them as well. You can also see people just streaming off, taking any exit they can, getting down there onto Macadam, and that's why Macadam's so slow, too.
Indeed. In fact, you know, what you're seeing there is Interstate 5 heading southbound, all backed up. And the tail lights you're seeing there, that is the ramp from Macadam. If those of you who have come into town on Macadam, you know, you kind of leave Macadam there, you parallel Interstate 5 down below it as you head up to tee off to, once you get to the end, you can go into downtown, you can go over the Ross Island Bridge, or you can go I-5 over the Markham Bridge, which heads, of course, to that extreme bottleneck that you were just showing before you came to me, where that ramp is closed to Interstate 84 because of the high water.
Yeah, that's Corbett. Isn't that the Corbett exit there where you can dump right down onto Macadam? It must be.
Yeah, it is, and the traffic there is just a nightmare. And down below, what you're looking at is traffic over the Ross Island Bridge, heavy right now, but at least it is moving smoothly. I would guess, now I don't know, you know, what the quickest routes necessarily are, but for some people it might not be a bad idea to try the east side of the river, you know, Highway 99E, and maybe head south and try to figure out how to get back over to the west side if you live down, say, in the Lake Oswego area or down in that region, Tracy.
Oh my gosh, Larry, it's just a glare of lights from above. Honestly, I don't see any good routes from this point trying to get out of town, and we saw out on the west side, it's the same situation going eastbound. Look at that across the bridge. That stopped as well.
Yeah, and we were it just went out of our picture, Tracy, but I looked up I-405, of course, at the west end of the Markham there is where I-405 feeds onto the Markham and then heads onto I-5 northbound. And it looked like I-405 similar to last night. In fact, I can just see it as we're turning now. It looks like I-405 may be backed up. In fact, I can see it through town now as I look by the Interstate Bank building. I think I-405 is backed up perhaps all the way. It wouldn't surprise me if it's all the way over the Fremont Bridge right now.
You know, Larry, maybe you can give us a look at the bridges. We've talked about some of the residual effects of having both the Burnside and the Steel Bridges still shut down at this point. We know that they opened up the Hawthorne about 3 o'clock this afternoon, but still limited bridge access to get across the river. The few bridges that are functioning at this point obviously just jammed to the max.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Jim, because we do see traffic waiting to get over the Hawthorne Bridge, and we had not heard that information about the Hawthorne reopening, so we thought, my gosh, folks, haven't you heard? You know, the bridge is closed. But right now, it looks like a tug has just gone under the Hawthorne Bridge. That's why it was open, and now it is closing once again. But as I looked downriver, I could see that the Burnside Bridge is still in the up position. And as you mentioned, Jim, that is causing much heavier traffic across the other bridges. And unfortunately, a tug going under, so the Hawthorne was just open now and closing again. There you're seeing a picture of the Hawthorne right now as it is about to settle back into place. So that traffic can continue moving. I can see heading into town, interestingly enough, heading into town over the Morrison Bridge there in the background. The traffic is relatively heavy, and but it is moving pretty well, moving from the west side downtown over to the east side, Jim and Tracy.
Yeah, downtown doesn't look like the real trouble spot tonight, but there are many of them. And again, the Steel Bridge closed as well, which affects max traffic in addition to all of this.
After last night, people thought they might have endured one of the worst rush hours they'd ever seen. Now it looks like it's even worse tonight, doesn't it?
Deja vu.
Yeah, we'll have more with Larry Shoup coming up later in the newscast. Stay tuned. The News Channel will return with more flood.
He'll join us a few hours from now. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're with us.
Traffic, they tell us, is bad just about everywhere tonight, Jeff. You can see the headlights of people still backed up on this Friday night. I want to bring you up to the minute now. Flooding kills 4 people in Oregon and Washington. We'll be showing these every 15 minutes or so. President Clinton declares 30 counties in Oregon and Washington disaster areas. Also tonight, nearly 22,000 people have been evacuated in Oregon. 22,000 evacuated. When those people will be returning home, we don't know right now, because the folks want to check out the homes, make sure they're okay before anyone goes back home. Better to be safe than sorry, Joe.
Okay, you're talking about those counties, Steve. One of the hardest hit counties in the entire state, Tillamook. The pictures there are absolutely devastating. Now, Grant McComie's been there the last 3 days. He was there today, and here are the latest pictures from Grant McComie.
From up here, Tillamook County is a chocolate brown lake stretching from the Coast Range to the Blue Pacific. The water simply runs everywhere, isolating neighborhoods and especially small farms. The dairy industry, lifeblood to this tight-knit community, will take weeks to recover. Some farms lost everything.
I have to get the garage cleaned up and move the furniture out and then start hosing it. We'll get the hoses out. It's never done this, not this bad before.
Others discovered small miracles in the now receding disaster. Here, a calf holds a promise for a farmer's future. Still, getting around is nearly impossible.
For the last couple of days, the only way to get around Tillamook County has been by boat. Well, things are improving. Now a four-wheel drive rig, high off of the water, may just do the job.
Today, neighbors helped each other with tractors, bringing out a farmer's livestock that were trapped all night.
He figures he has about half his herd left in there.
And the other half, he was able to get out earlier, or he just lost?
And
they're gone.
We're standing in the middle of the road here, or what used to be the road. It looks like about 2 feet deep, and the water came up so fast you can't get vehicles in to pull them out. And so then they're stuck, and they just said that they just had to leave them yesterday.
Still, they seem up to the task. Though this flood will be historic, generosity born of adversity is not.
Yeah, that's the thing with Tillamook, is it's family, and when somebody's in trouble, and which you've seen all over this valley, it's been one dairy going to the next dairy, to the next dairy, to the next dairy. Everybody's trying to save everybody's hide.
And in days to come, that adage will surely be tested. In Tillamook, Grant McComie, Channel 2 News.
And I want to add something else. Grant was not only covering this story, he was helping some of those farmers with their young calves, actually pressed into service trying to save those young animals. So he's had a rough day.
That Grant McComie, always willing to help, isn't he?
That's right, yeah.
Hey, before we move on quickly, just a note from Lake Oswego here. State transportation officials have closed Oregon 43 in downtown Lake Oswego because of the high water there. Of course, the closure affects the highway between McVeigh and A Streets. Traffic is being detoured at this time. So Oregon 43 downtown Lake Oswego closed because of high water. When you mention high water, of course, you got to think of Tualatin today. They've had all kinds of problems. Jeremy Diesel has been there all day long. How are we looking tonight, Jeremy?
High water that's still rising. Normally on a Friday night at 6 o'clock, I could not be standing here. This is the Tualatin-Sherwood Road, the main route to I-5 from the lower valley. As you can see, there is a complete roadblock in this area. There's not going to be traffic traveling on this road anytime soon. Why? All this water, and it's still coming up. This water has been rising. It's risen since we've been here quite significantly, actually. There's sandbagging activity well underway down at the Pizza Hut restaurant, also at this Rada Decor Center. This is the Tualatin Commons, and it is flooded in a big way tonight. And this water is running with some rapidity. I mean, fast-moving streams here. We'd also like to mention from Tualatin that the American Red Cross is doing some things to help here. There's 2 trucks of bottled water, we're told, on the way to the Living Savior Lutheran Church. Now, that's on Boone's Ferry Road, just about 5 blocks, I'm told, from this location where we are right now. As I said, the water is continuing to rise at this point, and from the estimates that we hear, there could be a crest maybe tomorrow morning, but this water is still coming up all over downtown Tualatin. Back to you guys.
Yeah, you mentioned the Red Cross. We want to thank those people. They've been just awesome through this entire ordeal. Jeremy Diesel, thank you very, very much.
Okay, you saw some incredible pictures that Steve showed us a few minutes ago. If you're just joining us, you're about to see them. And we want to bring a gentleman in on the phone lines here, the Channel 2 phone lines. Harold, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, this is Harold Wood. And Harold, we're going to run some pictures here. And the fact of the matter is, Harold owns something that is buried under this mound of debris logs along the Molalla River. Harold, set the scene for us as we start to work our way down. There are some automobiles buried in those logs, and Harold, I understand one of those cars is yours?
That's correct, Jeff. All white car edged up against a blue car.
Yeah, there's the white car right there.
We see the white one.
The blue car. You see the back edge of it.
Yes.
The blue car belongs to me.
Oh, my gosh.
And it was down there in our space before this cut loose. And You can see the damage for yourself. We're currently up above the bridge, up in a 15 acres up there. The gentleman's letting us, the people from the park use until we can get back down in there.
Oh, set the scene for us. Exactly where was your car parked in relationship to the river?
It was, well, my space was about 100 feet from the river.
And what happened?
Okay, we were given 2 hours notice to evacuate. I got out my motor home and my other vehicles, but I couldn't get back to that one to get it out.
As we continue to look at this video here, Harold, and I assume you can see it with us, there are other cars in there with you, and we also saw a trailer and a camper buried in that stuff as well. So I'm assuming, and I hope as we watch this video, there's some concern that, you know, folks are out of these vehicles and there's nobody inside. Can you clarify that for us?
That is correct. There was nobody in the vehicles. What had happened, most of us were not able to get all of our belongings out, so we took what we could and ran for higher ground.
Oh, geez. Harold, I'm sorry this happened to you. I truly am. That's nasty to watch. Got to be nasty to watch for you as well. Harold Wood there, south of Canby.
Okay, you can lose your car as long as you don't lose your life. And so, Harold, we're glad you're with us. And, boy, this is a day he's going to remember for a long, long time to come. Let's set the scene. When we first saw these pictures come in, Steve, you were the first one to look at them. You didn't even realize. You just thought it was a log jam. They're an incredible log jam.
Yeah, we had a viewer that brought the video in, as they've done over the last couple of days. And I plugged the video in, and I saw the log jam, and I'm checking it out. All of a sudden, as you see here, I spot these cars.
There's two of them there.
Yeah, there's 2 cars.
The blue one?
Right, and the white one is Harold's, who we just talked to. You see a bicycle down there, too. You see that, Jeff? Yeah. Now, if we let this video roll just a little bit more, if we can do that, we're going to see a trailer and a camper still coming up here. And I was just amazed, and so there it is right there. That's I believe, a camper. Do you see a camper stuck under there?
Oh, yeah. Wedged down there. Either that's a trailer or a camper.
Yeah.
That's the roof. And some sort of...
And we've just seen incredible debris floating down the rivers all day long. Earlier, it was a refrigerator. We saw a fence from the Oswego Point Amphitheater, a fence that they lost floating down the river. And now we see cars and campers and you name it.
And that can't be good for the bridge there. Matt Zaffino joins us right now. The fear was at the Steel Bridge here in Portland, they had a lot of debris that gathered on the east end. They had to raise it. They were concerned that was starting to cause structural damage. So that can't be good for the bridge there on the Molalla River.
Well, not an engineer, but there's a lot of force with all those logs and still a lot of water coming on down. So I'm sure it isn't very good for the bridge. And I don't know how old that bridge is, too. I mean, that's the thing. Some of the bridges in downtown Portland, especially the Morrison, are relatively new, can probably handle that stress a little bit more. But there is a lot of force coming down there. Most of the rivers are dropping off. We heard from Jeremy down in Tualatin a little while ago. He was saying that he had heard that the Tualatin wasn't going to crest till tomorrow morning. The information I have is that the Tualatin at West Lynn won't crest until noon tomorrow and may rise another couple of feet from where it was at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So it sounds like it's going to get a little bit worse down there before it gets better. The only other river that is still cresting, to my knowledge anyway, that I have information on, is the Lewis River up at Woodland, and that is cresting now. All the other rivers are beginning to recede. We still have flood warnings out for most rivers in western Oregon, southwest Washington, but those are the 2 that are still kind of up and haven't begun to really come down yet, especially the Tualatin River. That is still very much on its way up. Let's check the weather. At least we don't have any contributions from the skies right now. Look at that. There's a beautiful sight for you. For those of you who... well, maybe this will do somebody some good, just seeing a nice sunset out there. This is from our camera on Providence St. Vincent Hospital. We're looking off to the southwest at a lovely, lovely sunset there. And it looks like the traffic on the Sunset Highway moving eastbound is lined up fairly well, but moving at least a little bit. All right, let's check some of the weather maps and the current conditions. Clear at 49. It's northwest, the wind at 13. It's going to switch around to the east. Freezing level 7,300. We had some cooler air move in aloft, though. The freezing level up at Forks, Washington, down to 2,300, and that's great news because that means the snow won't be melting.
Anyway, the Tualatin River is still rising, and they're not sure when it will crest. They thought it would crest around 6 o'clock, but it's still rising. And I don't know if you can see behind me, but it is just moving fast into this area. And we're about a quarter of a mile from the Tualatin River. Homes, apartments, businesses all along the river utterly destroyed. In fact, we saw some cars that were almost virtually underneath the water. It's really bad out here, and there's no one around. Everyone's been evacuated.
Alexa Gromko along, as she said, the New River.
We've got a great forecast, though, so there is hope out there. Jim, how much sun do you have for us?
Well, let me tell you.
It really stinks, too, I should say.
It does, and that's going to be a problem. All of the place where any water has been will have to be disinfected. So before all the equipment can come down and the exhibits can come down from where they're currently stored, they've got to be cleaned, disinfected. The floors, the walls, everything has to be not just cleaned, but disinfected. And we're going to need volunteers to bring all the exhibits back down when that happens, and also to move all the sandbags that were put into place.
The silver lining in this cloud is that none of the major exhibits, or any exhibit areas actually, were damaged or threatened.
Yes, thanks to the good work of the volunteers and the staff here at Elmsey.
All right. The museum, of course, remains closed for the time being. It will remain closed through the weekend. And right now they're shooting to open it on Tuesday. Jim, Tracy, back to you.
All right, thanks, Nancy. And Nancy, you're raising a good point, as was the gentleman there from OMSI. We talked so much about the volunteer support that we had going into the flooding situations. Obviously, when it comes to cleaning up, those volunteers will be certainly just as needed. We hope they come through again.
We also need some voluntary efforts to conserve water. We will have more on the water crisis in the area when we come back.
We'll be right back with extended team coverage of the Great Flood of '96 on Northwest News, Channel 8.
Holding water in Idaho, in Washington, the whole thing's connected.
Absolutely.
And they try to scientifically figure it out so they don't start flooding different areas, and it's absolutely incredible what they're doing.
Well, Jeff, you're talking about the Columbia River system, not only Idaho and Montana, all the way up into British Columbia. I mean, the Columbia River drainage system is huge. It does go to Idaho, Montana, way up into BC, and so they have to control dams all the way up there. And this time of year, what they're afraid of, they don't want to keep the dams full. You know, you may think, why don't they just leave them full? They can't do that, because the next time we get a storm, if we get a melt and the reservoir's already full, they've got nowhere to go, and then you get some really bad flash flooding. So that's what they do in the dams. I drove by, for instance, Detroit Reservoir last weekend, and it was pretty much bone dry. I mean, it was very, very low. And we know we've already had to get some releases out of the Detroit Reservoir in this flood event because of the very, very high water. So that just goes to show you how fast it can fill up, and they have to get that water out of that reservoir so that they have some room for later events.
Matt, how fortunate are we that we got sunshine today? I mean, think about that. Another day of rain here?
Well, you think about where we were with the river last night and expecting it to crest at about 28 feet. If we had had another day of rain like we'd had over the last several days, it certainly would have breached the seawall. It may not have been, we may not have seen the rises on the rivers that we saw, say, back on Wednesday or Thursday, because we lost all that snowpack out in the Coast Range. But another day of 1 to 2 inch rains, it would have been absolutely devastating. And a viewer called, and I was talking to her earlier on the phone. She says, you talk about the '64 flood a lot. What's the difference now that we have all of these other flood control structure in place? And that difference is huge.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
All your up-to-date information. We were talking about the Columbia. Let's go back up to the skies. I think we have some pictures taken from a little bit earlier in the day. And there it is right there, the mighty Columbia, as you look across. You know, Steve, as we kept looking at these pictures, we were giving you live aerial tours throughout the day, our viewers at home, of as we could finally view the destruction and just the awesomeness. I was struck by the awesomeness of it all. And I said it's both awesome and sad at the same time as we look at the Columbia.
You can't get enough of it, even as you look at these. And we've said it so many times over the last couple of days. You can drive down there and you can look at the river, or you can watch it on television. But until you really get up in the air like this and get that aerial view, it really puts it in perspective just how much destruction it has done down there.
This is when we were flying over Vancouver, looking towards the interstate bridge, looking towards North Portland. And we wanted to zoom in on the Chart House and Who's Song and Larry's down there, the popular restaurants that I know a lot of you like to go to, and those were surrounded by water.
That really brings it home for folks. When you start mentioning landmarks that they're familiar with, you talk about the Chart House, many people have been there. Who's Song and Larry's, a lot of people have been there as well. So, yeah, you look at that and you see the water right up there against their belly. That's big stuff. Hey, you know, we've talked about the evacuation process that took place in Woodland today. Got to tell you, the good folks at C-Tran, the folks who operate the buses there, did a lot to help evacuate there. We've got a story now from Leah Hope regarding all of that. Here's that story involving C-Tran in Woodland.
This C-Tran bus is on special assignment, evacuating Clark County residents
for the second time in 24 hours. First, they had to leave home. Now they'll have to go to another emergency shelter.
We're from Woodland, and they evacuated us from the apartment. The river was coming down on the other side of it, and they told us to leave. They moved us to Woodland Middle School, and then they evacuated us from there and told us we had to leave for more people, and they brought us here.
I had to take it over a couple trips with my canoe, and I got my, I've got a lot of the stuff out of the trailer, but it's pretty much underwater.
Welcome home. Yeah, I'll be glad when I get home.
Red Cross workers welcome all the flood victims in Clark County to the Marshall Community Center in Vancouver, where they will stay indefinitely. It's their only option.
Everything ruined. Everything that I ever owned is ruined. Everything my kids own is ruined.
What is that going to mean for you and your family?
Homeless. Homeless.
These Woodland residents may have been neighbors before the flood, but now they're much more.
We're going through it together, and that means something.
The C-Tran bus driver who got this assignment didn't mind the detour.
It makes you feel warm all over, you know, that you could help somebody.
While those evacuated are getting their needs met here at the shelter, their concerns and fears only deepen once they see their communities and homes flooded out on television. The Red Cross nurse says physically most people here are okay. It's the emotional turmoil that's a concern.
Some people crying, some people real nervous, some people wanting to watch the television and know exactly what's going on.
The evacuees appreciate the help here, but now many wonder what help there will be when they go home. In Vancouver, Leah Hope, Channel 2 News.
That's one of the things so many people will be talking about over the months to come is how they were helped by someone else. And you saw C-Tran there lending a big hand.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break right here. It's a little after a quarter after the hour. You're looking at Highway 217 and 26, the interchange there. Traffic starting to move along, but it's still slow going.
And you're looking at the Hawthorne Bridge, moving along pretty well. Very, very fortunate that that is reopened tonight. A lot of folks are having trouble getting the other side of the river. Let's take a look at the Markham Bridge now, if we can. Get a shot of that in the background. You can see it in the background, all backed up. Folks making their way home, slowly but surely. We'll be back with more after this.
Every 15 minutes, we let you know what's going on. Highway 43 now closed into Lake Oswego in downtown Lake Oswego because of rising water. At least 500 Oregon roads are closed throughout this state. Hawthorne Bridge now reopened. Burnside Bridge remains closed at this hour, and that's the latest up to the minute from the Channel 2 newsroom as our storm coverage continues. If you've been following our storm coverage, you certainly know we've seen some amazing things over the last couple of days. One of the most amazing things we've seen, certainly today, was a rescue in the Willamette River. We want to show you that if we can and kind of talk over this. A man was actually spotted in the river. How he got there, we have no idea at this point, and hopefully you'll see the man. A line was tossed to him from the Hawthorne Bridge. You see the man there hanging on to the line. You also see the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department River Patrol moving around to pick him up. Now, once again, how he got in the river, we're not sure. But he was rescued by the Sheriff's Patrol. Fortunately, a lot of spectators, Jeff, were up on the bridge hollering at the Sheriff's Patrol to get to the man. When they finally scooped him up, they took him to shore, and they said he was a little bit out of it, in their words, and as you would probably be after a situation like that. You can see they're taking him into shore right here, and apparently he's okay tonight. But amazing scene. Absolutely amazing that they were able to throw a line. They had a rescue team on top of that bridge. You saw the line there. Imagine if he had missed that line, Steve. He would have been way downriver. And I'll tell you who was there on the scene was reporter Bob High, who's done just a great job down there. And he joins us now tonight. Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Maybe you can fill us in, Bob, a little bit more on this man. There were some reports that he may have jumped from one of the bridges?
Well, the last people that I talked to who had talked to folks who were on the bridge at the time, the man had apparently looked down at the river, had been talking about the river, and apparently climbed down onto one of the bridge abutments that's below the railing level and down onto one of the abutments and out onto the edge before he actually either slipped or fell into the river. Nobody's really sure. We've had conflicting reports. That was about 3 o'clock this afternoon, maybe a little bit later. When that happened, people on the Hawthorne Bridge who had seen the man go into the river started yelling at us, at the Sheriff's Patrol boats, anybody who was on the river to get their attention, because among the debris in the river, you could hardly see the guy. He was dressed in heavy boots, jeans, flannel shirt, and so was floating in the river amongst the debris trying to grab a piece of styrofoam. He managed to grab that, float for a little while, and then lost his grip on that in the cold water as he floated down. An incredible feat by the people on the Morrison Bridge to drop a line on the far side of the bridge in an area that he could reach it as he floated downriver. He grabbed onto that. At that point, the river patrol boat was able to zoom downriver, catch up with him, then grab him, pull him from the river, take him to shore. As you see him being brought ashore here, they say that he was just incoherent when they brought him ashore. They never found out exactly why he was in the river, how he got there, whether he jumped, whether he fell, but he apparently was okay and was taken to Oregon Health Sciences University this afternoon for recovery, but apparently not in that bad a shape, obviously cold and shivering from his ordeal in the river. In the meantime, down here, I can show you what's happening down here. Multnomah Falls, you can't get there because the I-84 remains closed, so it seems people are instead coming down here to the waterfront. Take a peek over here to the wall, and you'll see some of the people gathered here. Just take a look at the river, kind of taking a look at us too, because we're kind of unusual down here on the waterfront as well. But just enjoying the sights and the scenery on what is essentially kind of a cold, chilly February night. The temperature is certainly a lot colder than they were last night when it was raining down here. And the water level now, we can show you also as well. The last we heard it was 28 feet 6 inches, and that's, I guess, up to the inch reporting. And it has not dropped at all. It seems to be holding its own, but certainly not coming up. The crest certainly has reached here, and but has not started falling as near as we can tell.
Oh, boy. You know, isn't it ironic, Jeff, really, when we heard so many complaints from authorities about spectators being on the bridges, how ironic is it that it was spectators who alerted sheriff's authorities that the man was in the river?
Yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. So drama unfolding. Thank you, Bob High, down on the river. I guess the good news is that the river is staying. It's crested. It's just staying there. Hopefully it'll start to go down a little bit. I think it's going to be a gradual thing, Steve. And the big concern remains the Tualatin, because the Tualatin in some areas continues to go up, especially in the West Lynn area. So Matt Zafina was following that very closely, and when he rejoins us a little bit later, he'll have the latest on the river levels.
Yeah, Tualatin is definitely a mess. You know, we heard from Jeremy Diesel, our reporter out there earlier, and it is definitely deep in water. I want to show you some other video if we can. This is actually, let's start with a sinkhole. This is Kent, Washington. A man was actually killed in this, we are sad to tell you. Other details are not known at this time, but apparently a sinkhole. And he fell in it, and that's very unfortunate in Kent, Washington. You see the video there of his car.
Okay, near Troutdale, we have a major situation. We told you about the landslide across I-84. You probably can't even recognize it, but that's it right there. Look at the mess on I-84, and that's why it's been blocked off. Throughout the day, crews working to clear it, but look at that. I mean, it's hard to recognize. That's Interstate 84, the major east-west route, and closed in both directions.
You know what this is? This is Highway 30 near Klatskanai, and the road is absolutely washed away. You can see some of the debris from the roadway, and it is basically gone. I mean, not much more you can say about that, but obviously not certainly drivable. And Highway 30 looking pretty ugly tonight near Klatskanai.
Okay, we want to take you to Clark County in the Vancouver area. Ron Peterson was out and about throughout the day, and he was in the Lacamas Lake area where they had lots of flooding, and here's the latest from Ron.
Out here in Clark County in southwestern Washington outside of Camas, we're here at Lacamas Lake. It's a fun recreation area during the summertime. As a matter of fact, farther up the lake, people go water skiing, picnic, swim, have a good time. The west side access road to Lacamas Lake is blocked. It's flooded because of the rains and the flooding. Well, then again, so is the road on the east side of the lake. This is Everett Road, and if you ever come up from Camas to go to Lacamas Lake and the park, this is the road that you would cross into the bridge. It's all flooded over. Walking down this little torrent, it's not a stream, it's not a river, it's just the exit access to the parking lot for the park here. Caretaker parking only. The house up there is the caretaker's house. Up and over the hill is the Lacamas Lake Park. The stream here, this is not a river, this is not a stream. If this weren't flooding, that would just be forest land. That would be dirt, bark chips, brush, trees, Right now, it's a river going downhill to who knows where. Up and over the hill, well, Round Lake is over there, and there's an old dam that's keeping back the waters from Round Lake. And local residents are concerned about that as well. This is Round Lake. That's the Round Lake Dam, and this is the natural spillway that broke through a Thursday afternoon at 2:30, creating a new spillway. More rivers running down to what is normally a gentle Lacamas Creek. And this is it. The normally calm, the normally gentle Lacamas Creek. That's right, creek, not torrent, not raging river, but a creek that the locals say in the summertime is only about 15 feet across, and you can easily wade it. Today, during the flood of '96, you don't want to go near it. In Clark County, I'm Ron Peterson for Channel 2.
Everywhere you go, flood damage everywhere. Ron Peterson from the Lacamas Lake area.
And everywhere you go, traffic problems as well. If you have loved ones, relatives, friends trying to make it home, it's going to be a while. You're looking at Highway 26 and 217. Providence St. Vincent Cam traffic is way backed up there. Not only that, but also from the Markham Bridge. You can see Hawthorne, Markham in the background, moving slowly. We'll be right back.
Boil water in flooded homes. Also, Red Cross sending bottled water to a shelter in Tualatin. And most Kaiser residents are now allowed to return home. Not all, but most Kaiser residents now allowed to return home. And that's the latest up to the minute now.
We've talked about this for 2 days now, the debris that has just been cruising down the river. This is the Steel Bridge.
And this was on the east end of the bridge,
East end of the Steel Bridge, and they had to shut it down. All this debris was all packed up there. You can see just about anything that you probably wouldn't like to see. You see logs, you see barrels, and just about everything else just got kind of clinging to the bottom of the bridge there.
And you forget the bottom of the Steel Bridge, you know, is a railroad deck. There's some railroads rails there that the trains go across, and that was the scene on the Steel Bridge, and there was fear that that debris was going to cause some structural damage, so they shut down the bridge for a while.
Can you imagine having the job of having to clean that stuff out of there?
No. How do you do it?
Yeah,
how do you do that?
No idea. Hey, a couple other things I want to talk about. We mentioned the Steel Bridge, Jeff. We want to bring a quick little TriMet update if we can. Of course, due to the buildup of that debris we just talked about down the Steel Bridge, the bridge has closed, and of course, and will interrupt normal MAX light rail service. So MAX light rail trains no longer operating across that particular bridge. MAX trains will continue looping in the downtown area. TriMet is making adjustments, and customers traveling to downtown Portland can take MAX trains to the Rose Quarter Transit Center. So once again, of course, if you're hoping to take MAX across the Steel Bridge, it will not happen.
Okay, we want to switch out to Tualatin, where that is a real problem spot. Nyberg Road out that way, and Jeremy Diesel is standing by. Hello, Jeremy.
It's definitely a traffic nightmare out here. No traffic really moving. They're having to divert all the way around this roadblock. Now, the roadblocks at Boone's Ferry and the Tualatin-Sherwood Road, of course, normally on a weekend, the Tualatin-Sherwood Road would be packed with traffic, all trying to get to Interstate 5, but this is the reason why they're not. Water that continues to rise in the Tualatin Common area of downtown. You can see that water is moving with some force in the middle of the current, and it is continuing to rise. We talked to you guys just a little while ago, and it was rising then. It is still rising. They are still trying to sandbag the Pizza Hut restaurant there and the Rada Decor Center there. All of these businesses have water inside, but they are still fighting the good fight, trying to keep things going. This is one of the few places where we're still really worried about rising water, I understand, and it is rising. We've been able to see it rise in just a little bit of time that we have been here. And of course, all of the people who are here working in the sandbagging effort back at the Pizza Hut, and all of the people who have been in contact with this water in Tualatin are warned that it is extremely sewage-filled water, and the hepatitis danger is there. So you need to be very careful how you handle yourself, and that danger continues. No sign of the water receding here, guys.
Okay, Jeremy Diesel, and we saw the, if you're trying to orient yourself, the Tualatin Fred Meyer, the Pizza Hut down there. What a mess. Thanks, Jeremy, for the latest pictures and information from the scene there.
We've been waiting to hear from folks on the Tualatin River. We've been asking for people to call in, and Rhoda did just that. She joins us now. Hello, Rhoda. Hi. What can you tell us from your perspective?
It's a mess. We live right on the Tualatin. You take the Lake Oswego-Durham exit to get to us. And we have a gas pump that's pumping out our crawl space. We had about 3 inches before it got into our subflooring. Our backyard is totally afloat. We have at least been able to keep our dock, and we swung a line over from our floating dock onto our hot tub because our hot tub started to float away. We've got water just pouring down our driveway into the back, into the Tualatin. It's a real mess out here. Childs Road is closed in certain points, and it's just a mess.
Rhoda, when did this really hit you? Was it this morning?
Well, that's when it really started rising, when Scoggins apparently was releasing some water. They sent the sheriffs out to our house last night at about 2 o'clock to warn us. Obviously, we knew the water was coming. This morning, it really started taking off. We have a little picket fence in our backyard that's been our little monitor, and it's totally swallowed up now. You can't see anything of our backyard except for a bird feeder that's sitting way the heck up. We've got debris collecting in all the trees. I just was hearing a tree cracking down the river here from all the stuff it's been collecting. It's really a mess. People, I don't think, understand the problems that we're having here on the Tualatin River, and supposedly it's not going to crest till noon tomorrow, according to what Matt said, and that's at 20 feet. And I don't know if we're going to be able to keep our house.
You bring up a very good point, Rhoda. I've been letting people know since I've been here early this morning when we started to get these reports in. That was the real problem area today, the Tualatin River. Other rivers had crested, Steve. Some, in some cases, were going down, but that Tualatin continues to rise. And Rhoda, I wish I could give you better news, but Matt's right. It's expected to crest sometime tomorrow around noontime in your particular location. Now, some areas it's actually going down, but...
right, West Lynn.
Yeah.
I think is what he's talking about as far as cresting. I think it started cresting at Farmington earlier today. At least that's what we were told. But, I don't think it can be with, what I'm saying, with the water to keep coming the way it is.
Absolutely. So there's a few things working here, and you mentioned Scoggins Dam up there on Hag Lake. They had to start releasing some of the water, and that is...
yeah, if they could, I know that we've got problems everywhere, and I realize that, but I mean, if there's any way that they could hold off on dumping some of that water, we'd sure appreciate it downstream.
Well, Rhoda, we're with you on this, but I want you to know that I certainly feel for you, because I know it is going to be a while, according to Matt, but hang in there if you can.
Well,
I know it's easy for me to say.
Something. I was calling... I went out and was talking to our neighbors, and they were saying that, the river's cresting, and I'm saying, look, you guys, this isn't right. And so I called another news affiliate in town and tried to talk to them and tell them that wasn't the situation, that they were missing the story totally, that it was the Tualatin River. I couldn't even get them to listen to me.
They should know better.
So you guys, I really appreciate the coverage you've given us, because if it wouldn't have been for Channel 2, we wouldn't have been able to find out what's going on in our own neighborhood.
Well, thank you, Rhoda, very, very much.
Well, we got the crack weather change.
I was going to say, we didn't put her up to that call either. Want our other viewers to know that. Rhoda, thanks for calling, and hang in there. I know it's easy for me to say sitting from the desk here. Before we move on, Jeff, we want to just point out to folks, Oxbow Park on Sandy River, of course, 8 miles east of Gresham. That's a popular spot to close through the weekend. Mudslides, you name it, all there. Oxbow Park will not be open.
Okay, your heart really goes out to those folks along the Tualatin. Let's bring Matt in here for a little bit. Matt, any good news to give those folks? She said you said it, and that's true. I don't think that Tualatin's going to fully crest until sometime tomorrow.
No, I think not. Jeremy was telling us, and Rhoda, of course, bird's eye view, of course, unfortunately. And so that's a rough go down there. We're getting to the edge of the woods, but we're not out of the woods for a lot of folks. So I don't know if we can, if anybody can go sandbag down there, maybe people can get some help down in the Tualatin area. I don't know. Let's check outside right now and see what's going on in the weather. At least it's not raining anymore. We don't have to worry about that. We're looking at a live shot from our camera. I believe this is the Providence St. Vincent camera. We're looking at the traffic, which doesn't seem to be too bad. It's 46 degrees right now. It is going to be a cool night. Very good night for working outside and loading sandbags, perhaps. Very cool, clear weather. Storm totals, here they are. All this water still coming down our rivers. There's a lag time. You may be wondering why. The rain's over. How come the rivers are still high? Well, there's been so much water, so much snow melt. It takes several days in some cases to get all of that water flushed on down the rivers. Almost a foot of just rain at Brightwood, and they had a couple feet of snow up there when this all began. Let's get away from the rain for a minute. High temperatures today, very pleasant. 50 in Portland, 56 out the Dalles, 51 in Pendleton, LeGrand 47. I know there was a lot of rain over there up until this morning, but you too are clearing out. Satellite pictures, here you go. You can see the clearing off the coast here, and that's what's moving in, and that's what's going to stay with us for quite a while. The jet stream, which was so powerful, so consolidated, aimed right at us, is now split. And we are reaping the benefits of that split. One branch going around us now. There's a branch moving down through California around the leftovers of our old storm. And we have high pressure building in strongly. It's going to give us east winds tomorrow. They're going to be quite gusty, too, especially down along the Columbia and in East County. But it won't be cold. The reason why is this air mass, instead of coming straight out of the north like we had, last week, came across the Pacific. So it's a nice mild one, and we'll see very mild temperatures, even though we're going to have that east wind. A couple other storms, as I say, the one moving to the south and then that one to the north. That won't bother us at all. Nationally, I haven't done any national weather in about a week because we've been focusing on locally, but you may be wondering about friends and relatives elsewhere in the country. It's cold up north, but not too cold. Minneapolis, a high of 38 tomorrow. And there's really not a lot of precipitation. Some left over in the Rockies from our storm, and then California, and some snow left over up in New England, but really not a lot going on there either. Atlanta 68, Miami 80. So maybe just to get your mind off the flooding for a minute, and there's some national weather for you. All right, back to our forecast locally. It looks good for the coast and the valleys. Sunshine. There'll be some patches of fog around in the morning hours in some of the valleys, but really no big deal there. In the gorge, east winds gusting to about 40. Sunny and windy, especially, of course, the west end of the gorge. You folks who live in the gorge, you know the pattern. You get the west, with the east wind, the west side of the gorge gets the wind. In the Cascades, sunny, and the freezing level about 6,000 feet, and temperatures will be in the 30s. Sunshine and some patchy valley fog in central and eastern Oregon. Should be a fairly nice day for cleanup efforts there. I know you've had flooding problems of your own. 28 for Lone Pendleton, 25 Bend, 30 in the Dalles by tomorrow morning. And highs tomorrow fairly seasonal in the mid-40s pretty much all across the board. West side lows tonight will dip down into the 30s. 33 in Salem, 34 in Portland, Longview all the way down to 30 degrees and about a 37 over in Tillamook. Tomorrow you do double nickel in Tillamook, 53 in Portland, 45 Hood River, and a 53 in Corvallis and Salem. Small craft advisories now on the coast, and here's high tide. I've got these numbers switched again. That's 4:39 this afternoon and 5:14 tomorrow morning. And you add about 5 hours for the Portland high tide. So we will see that effect on the river, the Columbia River, and up the Willamette somewhat too, of course, overnight tonight. And we will have clear skies in town with cool conditions, a low of actually about 34. That high is 53, and there it is. East winds tomorrow with a lot of sunshine out there. And here's the 5-day forecast. I like it. I like it, I like it, I like it. Sunny right on through the middle of next week, and probably beyond that. We may see some slightly cooler temperatures towards the end of next week, but right now, no storms on the horizon.
And no complaints from us.
That's right.
Oh, boy. Okay. Thank you, Matt.
We want to remind everybody, our viewers, a special town hall program coming up this Sunday. What's up with the weather? A live town hall at 6 o'clock. You'll have a chance to call in, talk with weather experts. It'll be a very educational show. We will make some predictions about the rest of this winter. Will we have any more ice, snow, floods? Matt's going to be there, the entire Channel 2 weather team. Once again, we'll be taking phone calls. Town Hall this Sunday at 6. What's going on with our weather?
How timely is that one?
Yeah.
Huh? We're going to take another break. As we do, we look down the Willamette River. It's pretty much just crested at this point, and hopefully heading downward. We'll continue after this.
You can tell a breaking news station by where they're going and where they've been.
And they had fishing poles.
Yeah.
And they were actually fishing into the waters below. So, but amazing stuff out of Oregon City. Let's bring Barbara Wood into the mix now. Barbara's been covering the action in Vancouver now. She joins us from the Bureau. Hello, Barbara.
Hello, Steve. Well, big sigh of relief in Vancouver when the river did crest. When it finally crested, we happened to be out on the Columbia River at that time. Let's take a look at some pictures that we got from when we were out on a tugboat. Around on a tugboat right about crest time. That was earlier today around the noon hour. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, you're looking at Columbia Way. Those are our two restaurants that we're always seeing as we head north over the interstate bridge. There you see they've really taken on some water in there. That's Husong and Larry's. and the chart house there. You're used to that banner that hangs from the pilings there. Well, you can't see it now. There's McMinimans. McMinimans was kind enough to make lunch for everybody that day as they were putting up those sandbags all along the riverfront on Columbia Way. And there you have the Red Lion Inn. That's the Columbia Red Lion Inn. They took on quite a bit of water. I understand the whole first floor was covered with several feet of water. Now, the Big Sky in Vancouver, even though those places did take on some water, they really thought that the water was going to go all the way up into the downtown area, but the downtown area is virtually unscathed. Not so, of course, for Columbia Way, and you saw most of the pictures of Columbia Way. Those restaurants are on that street. It's just covered. It's unrecognizable. You can't even see the street, and hopefully in a few days we'll talk to Matt about that. Hopefully we can.
Where is that in relation, Barbara? We saw those condos yesterday just west of the McMinimans and the beaches down there. The folks were kind of moving out of there.
Right. Well, they're all out of there. As a matter of fact, we were hanging around there today and we saw no activity whatsoever. We showed you some of the water, and people are losing the dirt around the footings. It's eroding there terribly, and that's why they had to get out. All we saw were a couple of fire trucks and some police cars patrolling the place, be sure that there was no looting. But no one was around, and the water had gone clear up into their parking lots. So there was good reason for them to get away, but it looks like they are in good shape. They're actually worried about losing one of those buildings if it got much higher.
Oh, my gosh. So wisely, they moved out of there.
Yeah.
Barbara Wood, thank you very much from Vancouver.
Thanks, Barbara. Well, here in Oregon, we talk about Columbia County, two areas that were virtually cut off, Clatskanie and Vernonia. They were hit very hard. It's a double whammy. The Clatskanie River flooded, and a dike that held back the Columbia River broke. Look at the mess. All that water completely washed out the town's major employer, a lumber mill right in the middle of town. Oh my, we're looking at these pictures for the first time. Thousands of dollars of finished lumber floating around Clatskanie in 5 feet of water. We want to remind folks a lot of Clatskanie still without phone service tonight. They expect to have that restored tomorrow. Vernonia now has phone service.
You know, Jeff, over the last couple of days, we've been getting a lot of faxes from our viewers. One of them I want to read to you right now. It says, "We appreciate your coverage of all the storms, but doesn't Bob High ever get a day off?" We can tell you Bob is still, he will eventually get a day off, but he's still on the job tonight. He's downtown. Bob, what's going on?
Everybody's been working hard. There's a lot of people that folks never see who are making this all possible, and we've all put in a lot of long hours, but it's worth it just to bring people the latest information so that they can stay safe and warm and come down and see it at their leisure when things are okay. The latest information here at Salmon Street Springs. I just walked out of the Morrison Bridge and got the latest look at the river gauge. It is still at about 28.6 where it was earlier this afternoon. And so the river level, at least at this point in the river, has not changed at all that we can tell. Take a look out at what used to be the open-air amphitheater, and you can tell it's all flooded in, a site most people are now familiar with. The turbulence of the water here is still pushing very, very hard. Once again, updating you, the Hawthorne Bridge is open, although they're getting ready to open the bridge now. I just talked to also Central Precinct Commander Mike Garvey. He says they are now looking at possibly reopening Front Avenue as well. So that's something they're considering. It hasn't happened yet, but once again, they're considering doing that sometime this evening because it appears the river has stopped rising at least, and that reopening it to traffic would not endanger anyone. That's the latest from here at the waterfront.
Yeah, that'd be great if they did open that up, help alleviate some of those traffic problems down there, as there are traffic problems all over the place.
I'll tell you, if anybody can avoid Markham Bridge northbound, do it. I'm looking at traffic out there. It's still stopped up.
Way backed up. Yeah. All right, Bob High. We promise Bob will get a day off, too.
Someday.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Okay, going on 7 o'clock, Stephen, still getting reports that the traffic is just a mess out there. Once again, if you're waiting for somebody and they haven't contacted you by cellular phone or whatever, just be patient because it is a mess. And one of our own reporters stuck in traffic right now, Michael Hanna. Give us your location, Mike. Are you on the line, Mike?
Yeah, hi, Jeff.
Hi, what's your location?
We are on Interstate 5 in Washington at exit 22. We are just south of Kalama. We are right now in the southbound lane. And traffic is stopped here because about half an hour ago, a huge pile of mud and debris, a giant mudslide, has covered Interstate 5, both north and southbound lanes. Interstate 5 is closed right now just south of Kalama, Washington, on both the north and southbound lanes. So we're stuck here in a traffic jam. They are actually police here are forcing cars to do a U-turn, head back toward Kalama, and take a long mountainous detour to head south. So if you are waiting for friends or family who are heading south from, say, Seattle or Kalama or Longview and Kelso on I-5, and you live in the Portland area, be prepared to wait a little longer. Traffic is stopped here, and Washington highway people are here on the scene trying to clean up this mess, but they say it's going to be slow going because this giant earth slide is still very, very unstable. We were standing out there taking some pictures of it. You can still hear rocks falling down, so the best advice was to stay out of the way. We're monitoring the situation, but we're going to be trying to make our way home pretty soon here. That's it. Once again, Interstate 5 in Washington at exit 22 just south of Kalama is closed right now. Both the north and southbound lanes. Talked to a guy who's working on the scene. He tells me it could be several more hours before the stretch of highway is open again.
Absolutely incredible. Thank you, Michael. We'll let you get back to the driving there. Absolutely incredible. The major link between Portland, Seattle, I-5 closed, and it's been closed most of the day at Kalama. And now Michael tells us another mudslide there. So hopefully they'll get that mess cleaned up. We'll keep you up to date.
If you're going to Seattle, you probably have to go by air, I guess, at this point. Now, let's get a last look from Matt Safino, see how things are looking for the weekend. And again, I hope they're still looking sunny, Matt.
They are, as a matter of fact, they are, Jeff and Steve. We're not going to see any changes on that. Sorry you caught me off guard in here. I was just updating the telephone number and the river information on the telephone lines. That number again is 291-6030, extension 2215 for Western Oregon rivers and the Columbia River, Eastern Oregon and Washington rivers. Let me turn this down. Feedback. I hate that. Eastern Oregon and Washington rivers, extension 2214. Okay, a final look at the forecast. We are looking at sunshine right on through the week. We'll have a high temperature of 60 degrees on Monday, and then cooling off towards the end of the week. And guys, I'm not sure how much time I have right now, so I'm going to kick it back to you.
Good. Okay, we want to bring everyone up to minute. Thank you, Matt. I want to bring everyone up to the minute before we leave you at the 7 o'clock hour. Flooding kills 4 in Oregon and Washington, and 2 missing in Oregon. We're continuing to follow that story very, very closely. Nearly 22,000 people evacuated here in Oregon.
Updates throughout the night. Of course, we'll be back at 11 o'clock. Stay with us here on Channel 2.
Stay tuned for Jeopardy! Coming up next on KATU, Channel 2.
Out into the current and was swept away. This is all that we have of this pickup at this point. It's the seat back that was apparently washed up. State police believe this is from the small pickup that was washed away. Now we're going to push in and show you there's a white marker buoy out there. We believe that is where the pickup is located. And what an eyewitness told us is the person driving the vehicle went out into the about a foot of water, stopped, and then raced forward, got in too much water. The current simply swept him off of the roadway, off 99E. He floated for a few seconds out in the water and then sunk. No one saw anyone get out of the vehicle. We believe that the person is still trapped inside. You can see a state police boat is pulling in right now, and at this point they are getting ready to extricate this vehicle out of what has become a lake here, Shannon.
Well, you certainly can't overestimate the power of that water. It's a sobering reminder. Are folks coming down there? Are they curious about this situation?
Yeah, they are. Rod, pan on over here. We'll show you what's become a real spectator event, sadly. There are a group of perhaps 50 people who have gathered here on this little dike, this little levee next to Highway 99E. They've been watching the events develop here as state police have been searching this lake all morning. And what's happened is upstream from us, several miles, there's an irrigation dam that we were at yesterday afternoon, and the Pudding River has gotten so full that it's actually reversed its flow, and it's now backing up, pushing this water 10 miles away from the dam And this lake has formed. It's closed 99E. It continues on over this way where it flooded parts of the city of Kaiser today. And as you can tell, that these continuing problems are keeping emergency crews hopping to trouble spots. Shannon?
All right, well, thank you for that report, Tom. Unfortunately, though, some very sad news to report. That truck driver apparently thought he could make it through that high water, but such was not the case. Thanks a lot, Tom Fuller, reporting live. Flooding of some of Oregon's smaller rivers has caused lots of problems for rural areas throughout this state. We have pictures of the flooded Marys River near Philomath, that's southwest of Corvallis. Now, from the air, you can see many rural farms and homes overtaken by the Marys River. Many farms are underwater, accessible only by boat or raft. Many county roads in the Philomath-Corvallis area have been closed indefinitely. More than 100 families have been evacuated. So the water continues to be standing in many areas very deep, and we will continue to update you with the changing conditions throughout our region. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with extended team coverage of the Great Flood of '96 on Northwest News Channel 8, the new news leader.
That is the Hawthorne Bridge, which has been opened now. Earlier in the week, it was closed. It was stuck in the open position, open for river traffic, but closed for all road traffic. Right now, we go to Jim Donovan, who can update us on the river conditions. Many rivers going down, Jim?
Well, it's going to be a slow process, and we are getting some rivers falling. The Willamette is on its way down a little bit, very, very slowly. And that's really the big thing that is holding up, like the Tualatin River, also Lake Oswego. You know, it's interesting. We were spending so much of our energies focusing on what could have been water up to 4th Avenue downtown that no one really thought too much about what was going to happen in the outlying areas, at least not personally. And it's just amazing to see those pictures from Sky 8 and the stuff that's going on out there. Here you can see some high clouds, mid and high-level clouds slipping up the end of the Willamette Valley. We'll see a few of those off and on today. A little thicker cloud cover down to the south, and we could see a few showers down to the south in, well, actually, Klamath Falls reporting some shower activity at this hour. But that's where it's going to stay. It's going to stay on the southern end of the state, which is good news for our rivers. And here's the way they look right now. The Willamette has been going up and down, a little bit off and on throughout the night. It was up at 28.5 at one point, then back down. And now it's at 28.3 at last report. We do expect it to fall to about 27.5 by evening, and then down a good 2 feet by Sunday night, which will begin to bring some of that relief to some of the other tributaries that continue to rely on the outflow there. The Columbia, well, we're seeing about 26.9 falling to 26.3 by tonight, and then down to 25 feet by probably tomorrow evening there at the Columbia River at Vancouver. Now, the Willamette at Corvallis, they have dropped the flood warning. Been canceled. At Oregon City, though, at 44 feet now, slowly falling, ever so slowly, down to 40 by late Sunday night, which should begin to give some pretty good news to the folks there in downtown Oregon City, and maybe 35 feet or so by late on Monday. And the Tualatin at West Lynn, 18.2 feet. We do expect it to rise, ebb, and flow just a little bit this afternoon. And we, however, expect it to get down to around 18 or so by tomorrow night. And it will take all the way till Tuesday before we can get it down to flood stage, which is 13.5. Clackamas River at 9.0, and it continues to fall, and that's the way it goes. We have some sunshine out there today. East winds are continuing in the gorge. The barometer's on the rise. We're going to get some very good weather in through the week, almost spring-like it'll feel. And we'll have details for you on that coming up sometime this hour. Shannon?
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. Well, one reminder, if you don't conserve water, we'll soon have to start boiling our drinking water. The situation is very serious, folks. The city is telling us that some 800,000 people who get their water from Bull Run Reservoir may have to boil water if we don't conserve enough. That's because of all the mountain runoff. Right now, the water in Bull Run isn't clear enough to tap into. Here are the communities that need to conserve water: Portland, Gresham, Rockwood, Powell Valley, Tiger, Tualatin, Lake Grove, and the unincorporated areas of Multnomah and Washington counties. We want to see these counties conserve water because they're all areas that are served by Bull Run. There are also several other communities that are asking residents to conserve, including Salem, Clackamas and Welch's. Now, earlier we heard that the Welch's city officials, the water officials, had called us and told us that they do have the water back on, but they do need you to conserve. Here are the communities that are being told they need to boil their water before it is safe to drink. Sandy, Malala, Corbett, Estacada, Indana, St. Helens, Vernonia, Yamhill, Mapleton. These are all communities that need to boil their water. Carlton, Brownsville, Jefferson, and Wheeler. Well, the News Channel will be right back with continuing flood coverage. We hope you keep it right here on Channel 8.
Right back with extended team coverage of the Great Flood of '96 on Northwest News Channel 8. The new 96 on Northwest News Channel 8. The new news leader.
Welcome back. We have a major development to tell you about. Highway 8 in the Hillsborough area, which had been closed at Dairy Creek, is now open. So that's good news for the folks out there in Hillsborough. In Forest Grove, all highways are now open. So some road openings to tell you about, not road closures. Well, Larry Shoup has been showing us the pictures of Woodland, Washington, which has been devastated by flooding. He's on his way back to Portland, flying above us in Sky 8. Larry, what can you tell us?
Well, the devastation in Woodland, or I should say the flooding in Woodland, looking a lot better. Let's take a picture now, and you are looking, we're in the Cornelius Pass area, and you are looking basically east toward the Columbia River, which is extremely high in many, many places. That kind of more a panoramic view for you of just how bad it looks out here. And I believe you can see Mount St. Helens, perhaps they're going by off in the background. And further up, you can also see the top of Mount Rainier. That's exactly what you were seeing right there. From what I understand, we are going to show you some tape from Woodland, Washington that we just shot and fed back to the station, and there it is. You are looking now at the pictures of Woodland, Washington, just about 10 minutes ago. That's when we were flying over that area. We sent that tape back. And the water, as bad as it looks there in Woodland, Washington, the water has receded substantially. It has gone down, I'm guessing, at least a couple of feet in some places, perhaps a little more, a little less in others. There was a furious sandbagging effort going on yesterday to try and stem the tide of the Lewis River as it heads downstream into the Columbia. Of course, that is down from the Merwin Dam, and fortunately, Pacific Power and Light was smart enough earlier on in the week to release water from that dam so it wouldn't be all a deluge all at once coming down the Lewis River. But even with those control measures earlier in the week, it really, it still caused a lot of problems on the Lewis River as it heads down toward the Columbia. You are seeing a house now that we are going into there in those pictures that is still underwater. Many of the homes are still underwater. I know that there are a lot of people that would like to get out into those homes and survey the damage, but still are not able to do so. Some people, though, in the Woodland area are able to move very slowly back in, and you can see there as we widen out and take a more panoramic view of that residential area that is in East Woodland. A lot of it is still underwater. It looks more like a city of canals, a city almost riding on top of a lake than a typical scene that we would see in Woodland, which normally would be city streets and nice green lawns. There again, you can see some of the water has receded. You can probably see some of the mud that has been left behind on some of those city streets and in some of those lawns. You can also tell that the water remains extremely high in Woodland, Washington today. The good news, though, is it is receding. Pat Cruz was talking to us earlier today and was able to graphically show in a trailer park there some lights that were, look, there's a farm that is completely underwater in the Woodland area. Some light standards that were covered up all the way to the top of the light bulb, basically on top of the light standard, and about a foot to 18 inches of that light standard was showing when Pat was there this morning, and that was earlier. I'm guessing if it is continuing at this rate of decline, perhaps it has gone down another few inches, perhaps as much as a foot, and that would be the good news. Now we are back live, and we are moving in basically a southeasterly direction. We're going to attempt to head down to Tualatin, the Tualatin River right now, and check out the situation there, and also hook up, we hope, with not only Kelly Love, but Pat Doris. And there is a picture of...
you need to know that a DUI charge, although serious, can be won. If you have any questions regarding what happened, please call me. I will be happy to set up a free consultation to discuss your situation, send you a brochure regarding the DUI facts, and help you get the help you deserve.
A service of Phil Heineman, attorney at law.
At Babies to Kids, Simmons cribs are on sale at cost. Largest selection of cribs in northern Arizona, absolute cost, because dozens of new cribs are on the way. The famous 3 beds in 1 are due now. Crib, youth bed, adult bed. These are amazing cribs. Also quality handcrafted clothes, sizes newborn to youth. Fabulous one-of-a-kind shower gifts. Visit this wonderful baby store, Babies to Kids, next to Flagstaff Piano and Clock in Kachina Square.
Days of Our Lives, weekdays at noon on KNAZ Channel 2.